Hey, did you know that you could help support our future projects and let everyone know you're a fan of what we do? Check out our print-on-demand store. We have a tab here on YouTube. When you click on it, you can choose from a bunch of different items we have, shirts and posters and coffee mugs. Click on the one you like. When you find the design you want to put on it, choose a color and a size if it's appropriate. And when you purchase these items, a portion goes to help fund our future projects. We really do appreciate your support. You get some cool stuff. When you get that stuff, post pictures here and on other platforms, and we'll hook you up next time you order from our Gear website store. Thank you for your support of gunwebsites.com.
AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.
And welcome everybody. Getting back into the schedule of things, and Ask Gun Questions is something I've been wanting to do as a weekly live thing for a while. Give people an opportunity to ask questions over on this website. It's over here called AskGunQuestions.com, and there's just a Google form there. You can ask your question and put your name on there if you want. It doesn't really matter. We're not really trying to collect no data from anybody. We just want to collect some questions. It's kind of neat to see the assortment of things that come in. I invite people who are in the know to join in and be part of the chat and part of the conversation here. I'm going to start out the show by mentioning Brooke Cheney, who does a show on Saturdays as well on the YouTube. It's called A Great Start Shooting School is the channel. The program is called Suicide Prevention Saturday, and it's an ongoing, consistent effort to bring awareness to suicide prevention. Realizing that 2 out of every 3 deaths that have anything to do with a firearm are from suicide. Knowing how to deal with crisis and how to understand people in crisis, and knowing how to bring that situation to politicians is definitely a strategy that's worth pursuing if you have an interest in keeping the right to own property. All right, and maybe prevent tyranny, whatever you think. But anyway, great project. She was just over on the Second Amendment Foundation, the national level organization. Second Amendment Foundation does a weekly podcast show, and it's called, what is it called? It's called the, what do they call that thing? The weekly wrap up? No, that's what I call my show. They call it the weekly something. Thanks. I gotta go over here and look. I can't even think. I'm drawing a blank. Went over there and killed a Russian bot. It's fun to kill Russian bots. It's kind of like Plinkin. So the weekly bullet. I know it had weekly in it. So Brooke was just on the weekly bullet. It ran about an hour. It was certainly an interesting show to listen to with Brooke and Mike. Like not necessarily on opposite sides of the spectrum, but in different positions on the clock face, right? So they're pulling in different directions, but not necessarily apart from each other. So it's an interesting conversation to listen to. So, all right, we're getting back over to, boom. We'll leave A Great Start Shooting School and get into the questions. So again, if you want to ask questions, you can go to AskGunQuestions.com anytime you want. When you ask a question, guess what? It goes over to this spreadsheet, and then occasionally we're going to go live and we'll read it. All right, so you only get me today. I've invited a couple of people in. If they show up, you got others. Otherwise, it's just me. So we'll just go backwards and read maybe this month's. That way I can leave a couple of new ones, or we'll see how long it takes me to get through these. And really just a way to delve into firearms chat, maybe like a virtual gun shop visit. I'm not trying to suggest that this is the experts or anything, just an opportunity to get some stuff on the table that's gun related and chat about it. Let's see what this is all about. Sorry, getting a text from Patriot. I think somebody's maybe I don't remember his email or something. But anyway, here we go. So if a shotgun is chambered for 3-inch shells, can you shoot 2 3/4-inch shells out of it? That's a good question. I think that is yes. I'm not aware of any reason why that wouldn't be a yes. You kidding me? So now we got to go waste time again because of these Russian bots. They think they're so good. Or are you guys going to get it for me? So the next one is, so you can shoot smaller. Now, you can even shoot those little 1-inch shells, I imagine, but there's probably exceptions to something in there, but I don't think so. Is there any assault rifle that has a trigger guard which looks like the one on an AA-12? Well, an AA-12 is not an assault rifle. There is no such thing as an assault. Well, I guess there is an assault rifle, but no, there's no, let's go look at an AA-12. I don't have a 1 on my keyboard. Hold on. An A2. Amazing. The internet doesn't bring up anything for A2. So AA-12 is a full auto shotgun made by Atchison, if I remember right, in Florida, and then sold to Jerry Berber in Tennessee. Did an interview with him in 2012, chatting about that whole situation. So he bought the patent from Atchison, and Atchison has done all kinds of cool stuff. This is just one of his things. I'm thinking it's Atchison. Let me go double check on that before I just keep saying it over and over. Yep, Atchison. I think that's what the AA was all about. So Atchison makes it in like what, the 70s. He sells it to Berber in like the 80s or something, and then he gets Boje Cornelis to complete it. So Boje is a German engineer. He comes to Tennessee after leaving Germany. Cool dude, cool story. Really cool dude. Got to hang out with him for a bit. Consider him a friend. He is a cool dude. He knows his machining. This guy Jerry comes to him and says, "Hey, what can you do to this?" Actually, he has a couple other gun jobs for him, and then he finally brings him this gun, and he says, "What can you do?" So it's a gun that's hobbled together in somebody's garage, and then Boje turns it into a gun that works, that he can replicate and make over and over. Boje is making it one-off, though. He's making them in his shop, which I think I can talk about at this point. It's an old garage. It's super awesome. It's like an old 60s gas station turned into a gun shop, or I should say a gun factory. And he's got all these like non-CNC. I mean, they're mechanical, but I don't think they're programmed. They're not computer controlled. They've got some dials and stuff on them. But anyway, pretty much old school machines. And he's just whipping out different projects for all kinds of people. Super cool dude. And the AA-12 then becomes a useful gun that can be, it's like operational, it works and can be made. So Jerry keeps selling it around and nobody wants to buy it. And then YouTube dude, fake Russian guy, makes it popular by shooting it a bunch of times. And then some guy tried to put it on some early drones, some early drive vehicle drones. So they had some ideas for it, but really it'll end up just probably being a full auto shotgun mechanism. It's a really neat mechanism. I do a video with Boje where he explains the insides of it and how it works and how it cleans itself and stuff. So anyway, the thing about an AA-12 is the drum in front and how it connects to that handguard. And, you know, Boje was a German engineer. Atchison was alive in the 70s. So, you know, they thought this was going to be cool, but I don't know if they ever thought about it beyond how to make it and how to use it and if it worked and if it was strong. But I don't know if they ever thought about applications of having a thing span between the bottom of your grip and the bottom of the magazine. But anyway, it does, and it's got that weird little thing. So the only thing I can think of, what do you call this? It's not a, what do they call them kind of stocks? It's not a thumbhole stock, because it's not for that. But anyway, is there anything else like it? And the only thing would maybe be a Steyr, maybe? So the old Steyr AUGs had this weird thing in front of the handguard because in Europe, you don't hold on to things really hard, so your hand will flip go forward, and they were afraid of their hand going all the way forward on that bullpup, going past the vert grip and then touching the muzzle. So they were very worried about that, and they put this handguard on there. So that's the only thing I can think of that looks like an AA-12. If anybody knows any other answers, I guess you're it's okay. It's legal for you to suggest an answer to one of these questions. What's all this shit? Is this Warsaw? Let's see. How much is a sawed-off 4570 worth? 0. Maybe 10 years in federal prison. So it depends on what you value the next 10 years of your life is. So if you saw off something like a 4570, it's criminal because 4570s are cool and you're an idiot. So first, you shouldn't be ruining it. And second, it's a stupid question. So we'll keep moving. There are no stupid questions, but stupid people do ask questions. Next up, I guess I could put lines on these so we don't have to read them again. I guess it's technically legal for me to go back and reread some of these questions in the future. What 22 caliber magazine is compatible with the AMT Lightning 22 long? All right, well, that's a stupid thing to say. So there is no 22 long. There's only 22 long rifle, at least in an AMT Lightning. There is such a thing as 22 long, but I can't imagine. There might be a gun or two that are made with a 22 long magazine. Every other gun in the world is going to be made with a 22 long rifle magazine. So what 22 caliber magazine is compatible with the AMT Lightning? As far as I know, every single 22 magazine is proprietary to the magazine well it was made for. There might be some rip-off companies or clones that scab off of the host guns magazine, but for the most part, everybody wraps their bullets up their own way because it's one of the things everybody thinks they do better than everybody else is offer a grip angle or some feed mechanism that's better. So they're usually pretty proud of their magazines, or it's an afterthought. Let's see. I find a 220. These are all coming in. Those all came in this year. So even though we haven't been doing the show, people are still using the website. Thanks for that. You don't get paid nothing. I'm not getting paid for it, but it's a way that we can have conversations like this. So thanks for the people that participate in it. Oh, there's Safety Doc doing the show on Fridays. I guess you do it on Mondays too. I don't think I've caught the Monday show yet. Oh, here's Clover. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, for some reason I thought you were doing this at like 2 my time. I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah, you know why? Because of my flipping back and forth with stupid Arizona time. So half the year it's going to be one time for you, right? And if I keep it at noon my time, that means it's going to flip for you. If I have to, either I have to flip or everybody else has to flip. So I never get to keep something at my time. If I keep it at my time, I piss everybody else off, and if I keep it with some consistent time for the rest of the world, I have to remember half the year. Anyway. Yeah, thanks for jumping in. So if you want to, you know the deal. Oh, and I guess now that Clover's in here, I've mentioned it to you, I think, in a text or something, but I talked to, Dan through Cheryl, but Cheryl said that she talked to Dan and he's cool with it, or he's down, but they're just not able to do it this weekend. But Danny Todd might be jumping in the future on these shows as a gun shop owner and just another dude who's been around guns for a while. He's kind of a dude who's been around guns his whole life, owned a couple of different gun shops over the years. So he owned a gun shop, didn't own a gun shop, and then owned a gun shop again, and now has an FFL, kind of thing. So definitely a lot of insight. And then we all like different stuff. So yeah, I figured it'd be a good collaboration if you're down.
Yeah, cool.
Let's see. So I guess to start off with, shotgun chambered for 3-inch shells. Can you shoot 2 3/4?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is there an assault rifle which has a trigger guard which looks like the one on an AA-12?
Whoa, huh?
Is there an assault rifle that has a trigger guard that looks like the one on an AA-12, the automatic shotgun?
I'll have to pull up a picture of that because I have not.
So an AA-12 is the one from the 70s that's the full auto that FPS Russia kept shooting all the time.
Right.
It's in a couple of movies.
It's got like a connector.
Yeah, between the bottom of the grip and the bottom of the mag.
Not that I'm aware of.
Wrong.
There's some stuff that's like that, but I said the Steyr.
That's about the closest thing you're going to get, right? That has something in front of the trigger guard, but not the thumb hole, basically.
Correct. There's also, I've seen a couple of like, yeah, like you're talking about the Steyr, I guess would count in a way, but I've seen some submachine guns. I can't place them offhand, right? But I've seen some submachine guns that are similar.
Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't think of that, but I'm thinking assault rifle. But you're right, there are some sub guns that do that. And again, probably for strength, because they're probably little. Like they probably trying to make them as flimsy as possible.
Yeah.
Safety doc, have you watched the safety doc ever? Checked out any of his stuff?
Yeah, I believe so.
So he's asking, how are you timestamping this discussion? You're the Providence and Metadata Pro. Right on. So as far as timestamping, I'm not doing anything. So if you're seeing a timestamp, that's just a what do you call it? A toggle on YouTube. I'm somewhere on YouTube over here. I guess if I was in the video, I'm different because I'm hosting it. But if I was, oops, somewhere over here, right? You can toggle timestamps on. I don't know if that displays the timestamps. I think that's just for me, right? But anyway, if you're actually talking about timestamps, that's how you do it. But anytime you want to talk about how to with YouTube, please definitely jump in, like talk to Clover or I anytime you want. I'm actually going to be working on some projects to do some stuff, but Clover has a whole channel. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, GunTuber Academy, check it out. I haven't done anything recently, but just because of so much work that's needed to get done before heading out for shot. But you know, going to plan on picking that up once we're through shot. But yeah, talking about timestamps, chapters, and whatnot in YouTube. Obviously, you can put those in the description. The rule is you have to have 3, and they have to start at 0. So you have to have the first one has to start at 0, and you have to have a minimum of 3 to set your timestamps and your chapters. I call them; they're basically the same thing. And word on the street is that YouTube is instituting an automated system to kind of divvy stuff up and divide stuff up. So that's going to be interesting to see how that
okay. Works. Now, if you're seeing any of my videos that are already like this, I have not done it. And I'm a giant channel. It's been around since 2009. So it's possible that when they roll stuff out, I get it before somebody else or something. I mean, I don't always do that, but I've had things happen to me where other people don't have it yet. Because we don't ask, it just happens. So it's possible that their timestamp, because I do a lot of long videos, it's possible their timestamp in mine. And usually I don't set up for beta, but I don't turn off anything that's like, hey, do you want us to test this on your channel? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I don't care.
Yeah, right. I don't always timestamp mine. Most of mine is intentional. And I would advise that even if they're automatically doing it, that if you wanted timestamps, you did them intentionally. Because
totally worth it. Totally worth the time.
You're dealing with AI otherwise, and I mean, how much other stuff does AI do we know get wrong, right? So, yeah, and timestamps can be beneficial. You know, especially if you've got, especially with searchable content.
With docs, with doc stuff, because they cover a lot of topics on the 3-hour chat on Fridays at least. So being able to throw some timestamps in would be nice for somebody who's really just searching for something, you know, some kernel of what you talked about.
Yeah, if it's long form, it's important. It's, you know, it's beneficial to those viewing, can actually up your view counts. And then also, even if it's smaller, shorter form content, I mean, average, let's say 5 to 10 minute video, if you're talking about searchable a searchable info, searchable video, like you've got a review on a certain gun, carving that out with your chapters. This is the live fire on steel. This is the live fire on the paper. This is where we review the specs, that sort of thing. Gives that viewer the opportunity, instead of them just tuning into that video and then having to watch the whole thing and scrub and figure it out, if they're looking for like a specific tidbit of information, right?
And it lets people link straight to that piece. Like, this is where I got the evidence on Safety Doc's vid right here.
Correct. And then,
because a lot of people don't know how to do that. Anybody can do that anywhere in the video, but people don't know how to do it.
Yep. And somebody may share that particular timestamp, right? And then whoever views that may want to watch the whole thing. So they might go watch the whole thing. Who knows? So it's definitely a tool we need to use.
So thanks for the, what do you call it, like tangent there, but we'll do other shows because people are tuning into this from a gun or whatever. So next up is, how much is a sawed-off 4570 worth?
That's a loaded question. 10 years or $10,000 fine, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I answered. And then I gave them shit for chopping up a 4570 because it's a dumb thing to do. There's no reason to do it. It's not going to help the gun, and it's just going to ruin the performance of the the ballistics, I would think. So you're ruining the value. There's no reason to do this. I can't imagine a reason to do it.
Yeah,
Then
I
the
mean,
next one,
unless you're talking about maybe you're talking about taking the long one and then maybe somebody says chopping, but if you actually turn the barrel, do it right, and make a carbine out of it or something. I mean, if it's done right, I don't got a problem with going down to, let's say, a 16-inch or an 18-inch from a 26, 28, something like that.
well, and obviously, and then you're right. And then, like I was to say, like obviously, if you made it into like some kind of a shortened gun for like a retirement gift or a graduation present or something, then that's an obvious difference. But I think somebody who had like a real work done isn't asking how much is a sawed off worth. They're saying how much is highly modified 4570 in this presentation worth or something, right? So I'm guessing
Probably.
it's just a troll, or you're allowed to have just dumb questions. So I'm not going to complain. I just gave him a little bit of shit whenever I read it before, but feel free to leave dumb questions. It's not like I can't delete stuff.
But we definitely want to mention legalities though with that, and
well, no, yeah, exactly. It was an opportunity because we both said the same thing. How much is it worth?
Yeah.
10 years. You get 10 years in federal prison for messing with federal laws, and the stupid barrel length is a federal law since 1934. It shouldn't be, and hopefully enough people realize that and will change the NFA sooner than later, and then it won't be an issue. Because in Canada, sawed off. Actually, that could be a Canadian. There's not just dumb people that ask weird questions. There's Canadians.
This is true.
So
they don't have that.
They don't care about barrel lengths. Yeah, exactly.
They have other stupid laws, but they don't have that one.
Yeah, exactly. They just have like a different roll of the dice, stupid laws. So the next one was what 22 caliber magazine is compatible with the AMT Lightning 22 long? I don't write them. I just read them.
I don't know of one.
Yeah, my answer was basically that most of the 22s that I'm aware of are pretty much proprietary. There might be a couple that use like a Ruger's, the shank from a Ruger mag or a Beretta mag or something, so that they can buy them from a manufacturer. But they almost always drill their own holes or put their own base plates or some kind of something different. So very rarely, unless you're a clone. But I don't know of any clones done AMT. And plus the long, so that's just a sloppy question. But the next one was I want a 224 Valkyrie bolt action, but I can't find, and what other caliber is close to that? So first off, you know about this? Because I don't.
Yes, the 224
Okay,
Valkyrie.
so what's a 224 Valkyrie, and where does that come from?
So 224, right? Yeah, the 224 Valkyrie is new. Yeah, it's like basically it's a longer range version of I guess you could say, of the 223.
So it's longer, like they cut it down from something else?
Yes,
or they make a whole new brass, like so they're cutting it down from 308? Or some like hunting round that they chop it down from?
Somebody out there may know. Can't remember exactly what the parent is. 6.8 SPC is the parent. So it's a 6.8 SPC neck down to a 223.
I thought 6.8 was 308 neck down to fit in an AR mag. Or is that just a happenstance of it? I don't know. I don't know new calibers.
The 6.8 SPC. Or is that 6.5? No, I don't.
It seems like all the new calibers are just other brass that they fiddle with.
I'm pretty sure the 6.8 SPC, it's a derivative of like the 30 Remington. The 6.8 SPC is definitely a Remington cartridge. So I think maybe 30 Remington or something like that, but I think it's a derivative of that. I don't know that you can get to a 6.8 SPC from a 30 Remington. Does that make sense?
Well, it may. I just don't know enough of either one of them calibers to be able to verify what you're saying. But anyway, so the 224 is a new caliber. What was it made for? Military or hunting or something else, or competition maybe?
Talk about the 224?
Yeah.
the way I understand it is originally it was kind of a military presentation type thing, and then because it was a new thing and had a cool name and all of this, it caught a little bit of traction. The problem with the 224 Valkyrie is they have not in 6.8 SPC. Interestingly enough, since 6.8 SPC is the parent cartridge of the 224 Valkyrie, 6.8 SPC had the same issues as the 224 Valkyrie, in that there was a bullet weight versus barrel twist issue. And that's why, if you look back through history, everything now is pretty much called 6.8 SPC. But at one time, there was 6.8 SPC and 6.8 SPC2. And if you had the 6.8 SPC chamber, you had to ream that to utilize the newer 6.8 SPC2 ammo. Now it's all that way. Well, 224 Valkyrie, it went through that same, it still does really, has gone through that same trouble where they can't find a really good balance between the bullet weight and the barrel twist. There really hasn't become a standard for that. And that's why it's sort of lost. Most people have lost interest in it at this point, I would say, and that's probably why.
Well, I mean, you kind of covered it then. What would you say of the ones that you've mentioned that are close or from it or, near it? What would you say is the one to choose?
6.8 SPC.
Okay. And then would you get that in a bolt as well as AR?
You can get 6.8 SPC in a bolt. Yeah, I've seen them.
But I mean, it's useful because there's some guns that just or some rounds that are stupid to put in a bolt, right? Like they just don't work good in there.
I mean, I think it is. A 6.8 SPC honestly is fairly close, in my opinion, to 7.6239. And I don't own a 7.6239 in a bolt gun, but I know CZ makes one, and it's an amazing rifle.
I got a Ruger 7.6239 bolt, but the thing is, it's sort of pointless. Everybody tells me it's kind of pointless because the gun the bullet isn't made to be fat. What is it? It just isn't doing the math right. It's just a sloppy math gun. It's designed for other things, so it just isn't hauling ass and being super sleek, right? Like, so it's kind of a dumb gun or a dumb bullet to put into a bolt gun, but that's from the ballistics end, not the logistics end or the cost end or any of those other things.
This is true, but you're also probably thinking more along the lines of like milsurp style ammo and things like that, rather than hunting boutique, that sort of range. If you're talking
more the caliber than the brand, right? Like the caliber in general and what it's used for versus like what somebody can do if they really put their mind to it or something, right?
Right, because the projectile options in that are just amazing. So especially if you hand loaded for that, you could do all kinds of cool
for 7.62 by 39.
Yes.
Oh, well, see, that's interesting because I like ammo now. I'm collecting ammo, and if I can, I'll keep my press maybe, because if I can reload and fart around being old, and when I get old and broken and I can't do anything good, I'm gonna reload or something. If I can just sit around reloading 7.62 by 39 all funky ways, then that'll keep me entertained.
Yep.
All right, so back in the day here, Rob's from New York, so he's used to cutting in line. Even though we have this procedure, we have a whole system in place that's elaborate to ask questions. He wants to push in line and ask this question. Question I don't like answering because I don't believe you can answer it. So what is the all-around best AK? And he's just never heard me answer it, or he's trolling me. So I don't think you can answer that, because that's like saying, what's the best way to build a website, or what's the best retirement plan, or what's the best diet? I mean, it's just a very vast thing that has so many inputs that it's just a very difficult thing to answer with this one, unless you're getting paid to sell this one, and then you can very quickly get that answer from everybody else. And that's why I refuse to answer it for the most part, but I haven't done it in a while, so I'll give you my tirade on it. And Clover, if you want to start, do you have an answer to that when someone asks you what's the best AK?
I am not, no, because I'm not big enough into AK to really get into the minutia on it at all.
So for me, yeah, and that's a decent answer, I think. But it's just like if somebody wasn't into black powder, I don't know what to tell you. There's kits and there's, full made ones, and there's probably expensive old real ones, right? I don't know much more. So with AKs, for the most part, I'll generalize it to, you can buy authentic, collectible, something that's interesting, or authentic or rare or valuable, but you don't have to necessarily go rare and valuable. You can go something that looks like all that. You want it to look like a Vietnam bring back, or be a Vietnam bring back. And then in AKs, at least, or at least that realm, right? And that might be any wars bring back, or just any authentic version of a Cold War thing that was. And a lot of us, at least when I got into collecting AKs, everybody I knew in the old big club, where we really collected and met with Kalashnikov and like did research, and we're just digging into what the internet could offer, and we had resources all around the world that were adding to our resource, and it was just a really neat thing to be in. I never really, maybe I've talked about it in the past, but probably not with anybody that's listening today. Anyway, so I was in this club, and we used to dig out all the information and just share it. And for a while that was fun because the information didn't exist. And I was going to say all of us were either alive or in service during the Cold War. So we were basically plundering what the Cold War Soviet bloc had built to destroy us, or at least to threaten us, right? To hold over us and everybody. So instead of using all that stuff for war, words and politics and all the stuff that happens because people don't want to go to war happened, and the Cold War ended. And now we're basically looting, just like that movie Lord of War. You know, we're grabbing all this stuff from Cold War countries that are just like, good, take this as money, because we'd rather have money than war, right? So we're getting all this wood and this leather and these canvas and these pieces of metal, because we couldn't get the metal because of stupid NFA laws and the 1968 import laws. But we could get whatever pieces we could, and we'd assemble them basically on Romanian guns into all these different guns that were designed to kill us. And we were discovering what the different guns were, and like books were being written and pictures were being shared on the new internet and all this. It was an awesome time. So for a lot of us, at least what I consider us, like a lot of people that collect AKs, it was just about owning as close to possible a room of guns that would have been like maybe what Kalashnikov would have had available to him. Because we could buy guns for $50, parts kits for $50, put them together in an afternoon, buy parts from each other that make them look German or Bulgarian or Hungarian or anything, right? And then we knew people that were buying all the guns from Red Dawn. So we had the Mahdi guns that were made in Egyptian factories on German equipment that was given to them by Russia, which is the closest bloodline you can get to a full auto AK, brought into this country as semi-auto, reassembled by Melius for Red Dawn in 1984, turned into full auto guns. And those 13 AKs, full auto pre-86 guns are out there. And the people that were doing all this owned those, like some of them. So it was just an amazing time to be into AKs. That's one side. That's the side I like. And then that's when I was like, okay, I can't keep buying guns. I don't have enough room to have more than this many. I had a lot of guns, let's say. I don't have enough room for them anymore. So I started collecting the bayonets, because I could collect more variety of bayonets, and they were way cheaper than putting a gun together, right? And there was other guys that had the guns. I didn't need the guns when I could go hang out with people who had rooms full of guns, right? So my thing was the bayonets, and I went off on that angle. But I hung out with all these people doing the AKs, and that's what I like. I've been in rooms with every AK you've seen in a book. I've been in rooms with all those AKs with many people. That's not a difficult thing when you have a aerospace job and guns are $50, right? So that's AKs to me, is that playing Barbie with the guns that were built to kill us in the Cold War, and we're playing with it. We're shooting all that lead into the berms, you know, right now, you know, years later. Then, and that's valid, and that's what it is. And I don't know, there's some version of that today still. I know there's those people still exist. So, you know, we're all living our lives, you know, some history of that. But then there's the other side, and that's the people that are like, I need an AK to be practical, and it has to be a machine, like when we have these theoretical AK versus AR discussions that are stupid because no one has a real AR, right? Everybody has something that was made either with better spec or worse spec than the military. And a military gun is full auto, and no one has a pre-80, you know, a post-86 actual machine gun. So we're all using non-ARs or non-M16s to compare with what parts kits put together, or US made stuff, or some kind of imported thing that's been hobbled down. We don't have real comparisons, but people have these. I mean, since the internet has existed and before, people have done that stupid AKAR debate, and there's no end to it. So again, people get paid by an AR company or AK company to have an opinion, or they're chatting up somebody because they want a free gun, so they have an opinion. My opinion is there's no answer to that side, so I don't get into it. The only answer is what's available to you. To sum it all up, there's those two sides. The people that are like, I need the machine that's theoretically ultimately reliable. Like, I've been told that the AK is the durable machine that can run through anything, and I need that machine or as close to perfection as I can get. And then they put a mental block up and go, even though it's not going to be for real, even though it's not going to be full auto, even though it's not going to be made on those giant presses that we see in Lord of War that actual AKs are made on, even though I'm not getting any of that, I'm still going to say that an AK is super reliable, and I'm going to buy one, right? And I'm not saying that they're not ultra reliable compared to ARs, because I just said there's no answer to that debate. But those people are going to be either dedicated to some paradigm or some dogma of like what they believe Bulgarians are best or Hungarians are best or Yugoslavians are best or Chinese are best. I can argue any of those positions all day long. Germans are best, Russians are best. Any of those. US are best, I won't take that one. That's a stupid position. But that's the thing. There's people that are like, I need it to be a machine. And then there's people that are like, I want it to be my Barbie dolls. And neither one of them are going to get what they want. They're all going to have to get towards it. So what that means is there's tons of people that are going to exploit you and exploit that need and exploit it. And it frustrates me and it annoys me. And it's one of the reasons I try to stay out of the conversation, because that takes me, 20 minutes to answer it. And here's my answer. It doesn't even matter. All of that is just setting the playing field for whatever Rob has available to him is 10 guns, 30 guns. If the gun shop near him has 2 or 3 and another gun shop has 2 or 3, and then he can find 3 or 4 online that he has available to him in his price range before they get bought by somebody else, realistically, we only ever have 10 to 30 guns available to us at any time. So having a debate on a gun that's the most prolific small arm ever created on planet Earth and saying which is the best of the most prolific thing that's ever been made, like the machine that's been made times 4 all the ARs that were ever made, or at least all the official M16s that were ever made, it's ridiculous. You can't answer that question. So it's really just what's available to you. And then you have to say, so if you really want to ask that question, I have these 3 available to me. Of these 3, which would you pick? And then ideally you'd say, this is my mindset. I want them to work well. I want them to be authentic. I want them to be able to have a lot of furniture on them. I want them to be able to run through all weather. So that's just a very vague question. Like, say, what's the best diet? Like, what's the best way to raise my kids? Like, sit down and let's start having some conversations. Bring some coffee or a beer. So that's my horrible answer. I don't like answering it because it takes me that long, and it's probably not even. Most people are like, screw it. That's not even an answer, right?
Well, I linked up to Cash EDC out there, and Rob probably knows Cash, but he's got a pretty good AK collection, and I think would come at it from a different perspective than even you or I. So, if you're looking for various perspectives on AKs and opinions, I think Cash EDC might be a good source to.
I definitely like to hear what Cash would say, because he's got enough AKs, and his interest in them is, I think you're right. It saddles both of those things that I try to divide,
right?
Because he's new and different, right? So yeah, he's got a whole different, like there's no way he never lived with the Cold War. He's just too young. Like, he never lived through it. And there's a difference between living through the Cold War as an American and a German, right? Like, it's just, we all have different lives. So they get to live a different life than us. And I mean, because we just had a dumb thing. Like, we had to worry about bombs going off when we were little kids. They threatened us. Like, we got to worry about stupid things today. They used to threaten us with a bomb going off. Was it realistic or not? I don't know. Certainly seemed realistic at the time. Like, I think it could have happened, right? Like, so anyway, these kids get to live without that. So I hope they have a whole, I'm glad that they get to have a whole different perspective on these guns. Like, they don't have to have all that baggage and stuff. But that's why I can't answer the question, because I don't give a shit about the new guns. Like, I don't even care. I like my AKs for all the stuff I just said, to play Barbies with them and to know with ultimate satisfaction that somebody toiled and their whole country failed because they were trying to make so many of these to kill my brothers, and they didn't. They did not.
Right.
But so that, I don't care. I just like having the mangled piece of metal, knowing that it represents all that. So just a different thing. And like I say, it's just a little tiny sliver of such a giant piece. It's like having a sliver of the Titanic. If you don't care about boats, why would you even care, right? But some people are going to want that sliver because of the movie, and other people because they knew somebody on the boat, right?
Sure.
All right. So with that, that's your answer to cutting in line, and he wasn't even here to listen to it. So somebody gets to try to summarize all that to him if they want. All right, so let's go to the next one. Well, how much time do you got? Should we go an hour?
We can go another, yeah, we could go another 45 minutes or so anyway, probably.
Okay, then we'll go 90 altogether. We're about 40 right now. Because there are quite a few since the last time we did this. There looks like quite a few people have been asking stuff. So again, this is from the website askgunquestions.com, a website I've been running. Probably could figure it out. It was one of the first ones I bought. Back when I figured out I could buy domain names, so you didn't have to ask permission. I could just buy them. I started buying them, and then once I figured out that they're neat, that you can do things with them, I figured why not own some of them that are cool, right? So I bought gun websites and used that as my main thing for guns. Then we started buying some other ones, and one of them was Ask Gun Questions, so that, and this was like in 2006 or something, so that people that had gun questions didn't have to go to a forum. They didn't have to go know some name of some gun shop. 2006 was a weird time. People were coming off of like AOL, where they thought AOL was the internet. So they were just kind of walking around the whole rest of the internet, kind of wandering. So they didn't, they were suckers, I guess. They were. It was easy to be led into page sites or weird things. So I was trying to create a place where people that might be new might have just a plain old question, could ask them without getting a hard sell or something like that. So anyway, anybody wants to use it, there's just a Google form here now, which is you just type in your question. If you want to put your name, you can. You don't have to. And then, or you put in any fake name you want. I'm not trying to collect no data here. And then it goes into this spreadsheet, and then we read it. All right, so the next one is, where did all the AOL CDs? I don't know where all of them went, but I'm about to put a bunch of them on eBay. Friend wants to build rifle kit. Leaning 762-308. Are the parts on AK variants on sale or the parts on the M10 on sale interchangeable? Interesting. I'm thinking they're meaning an M10. It was a Yugo M10 or something. Do you have any answer to this one?
Nope. That's getting into AK stuff again.
All right, so I'm going to let you take this one because I just got a text I got to read. I have a 222 rifle that its only markings are proof tested caliber 232. Do you know who the maker is? So that's interesting. You want to try taking that?
Yeah. It's weird that it's 222, but it says 232, so that's kind of crazy. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Without having some pictures or other things or knowing, yeah, I don't even know where to begin with that, quite honestly. Marked 222, which is pretty common. I don't know. I'm wondering why you was saying it's 222, but then it's marked 232. Because there's definitely some older bolt rifles and a lot of different things in 222. So I'm wondering if it's old, and I'm wondering if it just looks like it's marked 232. So I don't know. That person is probably not out there. But yeah, I wish I could answer. I wish I had more information on that, but I just don't. And sometimes the questions get to be that way, unfortunately. Where, and I get it. I mean, people throw the questions out there, and a lot of things is left to assumption or whatever. But yeah, that's definitely that's a good question because got me stumped for sure.
Appreciate you being here. I just got a weird text. I'm not dealing with a health thing, and it's not the dog, but I am dealing with something. So we'll keep going. But it's I feel like I just got kicked in the stomach. You have a 222 and a 232. I don't know nothing about either one of them other than their rifle calibers. Is 232 even a thing? I've never heard of a 232.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of 232, but it's not like a common thing.
So is a 222, or which I should say, is a 222 made out of a 232? Like they would have had a 232 rifle that they made 222? Is that even a possibility? Because I don't know which one's bigger than the other or what shapes these things are. Because that's the only thing I could think of is you'll sometimes see like a rifle that was made to be, let's say, 22. I don't know if this even works, but like 22 long rifle, and then some, or let's say 22 short, and then somebody decides that's a dumb run, or 22 long, probably a 22 long like bolt action rifle. Somebody could say it's just too hard to find 22 long ammo. Can you rechamber this to 22 long rifle? And they'll go, yeah, the pressures are minuscule, right? Like let's just take a tool and bore out the chamber to 22 long rifle spec, and that might have a barrel that says proof tested 22 long, but actually be 22 long rifle.
Right.
2 different calibers. That's the only thing I could think of if it was a situation like that.
Well, 223 was it 223 derived from the 222?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too. So I happen to have in my lap here the 4th edition of the Ammo Encyclopedia. So the bad thing is it's live television, and try to flip through this and see if I can find anything on the 232, see if it's got any references to it in here. That's the only thing that sucks. So maybe, I don't know, maybe pick another question and I can, no, well, I'm already at 222 here. So what was that, 232, correct?
Yep. And this is also, we can, while you're looking, I'll mention there's the, well, I'm going to mention Echo first and Dead Horse. So Dead Horse has a channel that he hasn't been super active posting stuff, but he's still around. And he has in the past posted a massive archive of videos, and a bunch of it was on reloading. As he learned stuff or bought new equipment, he would share it, and often would post a video to either explain something that people had a question about so that he could, get zoomed in shots or edit things to, actually address a question or an answer or something. And then go live. He went live quite often to talk about reloading. And then Echo now has a regular show on Fridays where he usually interviews or has kind of an open discussion on reloading. And then I think those guys are all part of the Georgia Shooting Connection or something like that. Mm-hmm. Georgia Reloading Connection. Some there's a couple of resources online that I'm familiar with, and that means there's probably like 5 of them online that I'm not familiar with. So whatever you can't find out here about reloading, you can definitely keep asking. You'll find the answer. That help you find it or give you time?
Yeah, I mean, in this particular Ammo Encyclopedia I got, there's no reference. And like I said, I've heard of it before in passing, but I'm thinking what it is. And whoever asked this question, I mean, it may give them a better idea because they're able to they're looking at the rifle or have access to it. But I think potentially what we're talking about is a 232 is a conversion from the millimeters. It's actually a, you know what I'm saying? It's actually an overseas thing. Kind of like 380. You know what I'm saying? Overseas is a
9mm Kurtz or something. 9 by
yeah. 9.65 or whatever it is, or something weird like that. Or 7.65. Sorry.
Black Cat is saying the AR-10 comes in a couple of different patterns. Just make sure you get the upper and lower from the same manufacturer. Everything else should work. So that would be interpreted. I think this one, as I kind of was reading it at first, that one where it says friend wants to build a kit, leaning 7.62 or 308. So that's the problem. 7.62 by 51 is 308. 7.62 by 39 is a different caliber. So we don't know if that 7.62 means which. So 7.62/38, that either means either or it means I'm verifying I mean the military version of 308, right? So then they're saying, are the parts on the AK variants on sale or the parts on the M10 on, see, the AK parts on sale, that sounds foreign or something, language issue. So can you buy parts for the AK and the M10 interchange, or can you interchange the parts on an M10 or an AK set 47? Well, there is AKs called an M10. There's a couple. There's like a M10 from M&M or something like that in Colorado. And then there's the Yugo, I think, an M10 that's in 308 or something like that, if I'm remembering it right. But I think if Black Cat is saying that, then if I read that originally, I thought AR10, because if that means 7.62 by 39 or 308, then AK or AR in 308. And then I think that's what he's answering the question, how I would answer it. There's proprietary platforms that the 308 is made in, and they don't interchange. They're not like Legos like the AR-15s. So as long as you buy one that's all the same set, you're good to go. But if you buy something that's one like version versus another version, they don't usually match up at all.
So something that you get sometimes with these questions is you get people that, and there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm not digging on people asking the questions, but they don't know enough to be able to ask the question, right? A lot of times, or ask a good question. And I mean, that's understandable.
Oh no, that's 100% a thing, right? Like,
know,
yeah. And how could you know? You can't. I couldn't ask an engine question to somebody because I don't know what the parts even are.
Yeah. So, that question seems a lot like that. So when I first heard it, my first thought was they're talking about they want to build something in a 7.62 by 39 or a 308. And then my thing with that would be, well, you're talking about two totally different platforms. You're talking about the AR-10 or DPMS pattern versus the standard, mil spec, whatever AR-15, right? Two different things, technically three, I guess. But so yeah, it's one of those questions that is hard to answer in a way because you don't actually understand what's being asked.
Yeah, but that's all part of it. I mean, we're not dealing with a bunch of drones or Borgs or something where we all speak the same language, so that's fine. That's how we learn by figuring out how to talk to each other.
But I think it's important too when we have questions like that to talk about that aspect. That way, if people are listening, they know they can come back and ask a more pointed question, right?
Yeah, and exactly. Like, yeah, perfect. Yeah, exactly. So then, this is the next one. Will a regular AR-350 Legend fit in a Ruger SR-556 lower? Well, the SR-556 is just a plain old 556. It's not like their proprietary AR. So, right? So then,
correct. Answer is yes. Yeah.
So it should. I mean, obviously there could be something weird, but it seems like they're all the same spec or the same format.
Yeah, he said lower, so obviously, I guess he's thinking probably about getting an upper, and I mean, shouldn't be any problems there.
So this one says, this was from 12/6. Oh wait, did I miss another one? No, it was just Rob's, I think, that I wanted to go back and hit.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything so far.
Okay, so then this next one came in on December 6th. After the Dixie Fire in Northern California, we found the remains of an old rifle along an old logging railroad spur. Through the rust, let me try to just double click on this. Okay, that worked. Through the rust, I was able to locate some numbers with a wire brush. What I was able to find is that it is a Winchester, I believe, model 1895. I believe serial number 400000, 22-inch barrel with a Lyman heavy front sight. The upper receiving tang shows model 95 Winchester, trademark, blah, blah, blah. The best I can measure, the breech is something and the muzzle is something. So an engineer found this, I guess. A lot of rust, so hard to measure. Okay. On the left side, the barrel is printed nickel steel barrel, especially for smokeless powder. Government 30 blah blah blah. Winchester repeating arms. The under that is what I believe the dates. I can't read November, so the patent dates. I think it's an old 30-06 hunting rifle built in 1922. Am I close? So we should be able to take the serial number and find out the easiest if that's a good serial number.
I don't. They didn't build a 1895 and 30-06, did they?
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. I don't know enough about the Winchesters like that off the top of my head. So that's, in other words, that's a model of Winchester probably before that caliber existed, more than likely. Or at least a model of Winchester, because sometimes the models of Winchesters have to do with how long the cartridge is. Like a model for a 22 is never going to fit a 30-06, right? They're just different size guns. So in this case, a model 1895 could be. That's a long throw, right? But I don't know enough about them. So We can quickly look over here.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking right now. 3040 Krag.
Yeah, it doesn't even say.
303. Yeah, 30-06. Okay. Yeah. Never mind. Yeah, so it could be. Could be. And I would think where it was found, and whatever, pretty good odds it probably is the 30-06, right?
So here's the thing called Winchester Fire. Oh man. Winchester firearms. Why the historic serial number? Shotguns, are they always? A few reasons. Well, more than likely, it sounds like the person found a list. So all we're going to be able to do is verify it by looking at some kind of a lookup. And it's not like neither one of us know off the top of our heads. But basically, you would look for something like this. You'd look for somebody who's shared the data. And there's going to be from historic records, you know, how many of these rifles are made and when and all that. So you would just find the model 1895.
So what did he say the serial number was?
400,000.
Okay. Because I'm looking through my books here. 1895s, they made 425,000. So definitely later.
So this book or this list says that the model 1895s, and you go through the serial number range, and then this number over here is the year. So it looks like in 1922. So he probably looked. So yeah, according to this, then yeah, that's looks like they did good research. And you could probably, well, the ways to get better research would be go to the museum that I don't like in Wyoming and pay them. I think it used to be at like $100-something, probably $150 or something. Do they do a Winchester lookup, like a Colt lookup? Can you get a Winchester letter from them? Because I think they have all the data. I believe they do it. But the Cody Museum does lookups now for Colt and for Winchester and Remington. I don't remember. But they own the records. They physically have possession of all the old records. So for money, they will go. You pay one of them to go through, find the information, verify that serial number, gun, and blah blah blah, when it was made, and whatever information they might have in the factory records, which will be usually what hardware store it was sold to, or maybe if it was a military gun, what unit or division or quartermaster it went to. And sometimes if it was special order, that's neat. So depending on what the letter says, the letter can add a lot of value to it or give you a lot of, insight as to a little bit more insight, I guess, than the list there. But I don't know. What else do you got to say about it? What if you found that gun? Would you just keep it, or would you try to find something? Because the way that they describe it, it doesn't sound like it was just set down. If it was there forever, or if it was somebody hauling ass from the fire and dropped something.
Right.
So I guess, in other words, if they found it like under dirt and it was there forever, obviously that's yours. But if it was like, this is just laying here, but it's an antique item, like that there's 6 other antique items, and it looks like these all fell out of somebody's car. Like, I think I might go try to find that, because that might be an expensive gun, huh?
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, from what he's talking about and what kind of shape it's in, you know what I mean?
That's interesting. So do you value something like an old, well, I've asked this question before, because I have that old 1911 that's rusted shut that somebody found out in the desert. You don't have much interest in stuff like that, huh?
I don't care much for wall hangers. No, I mean, I recognize the fact people do, and that's fine. Personally, I don't. So, does that mean it has zero value? No, that is not.
Well, that's the thing. You got to find the person that's interested in it. And the thing is, just because it's so rusty you can't shoot doesn't mean some idiot, asshole, bureaucrat, law person won't suggest that it hasn't been demilitarized. They're, created or intentionally modified to not fire. So even though it's all rusted, they'll potentially say something like, well, if you put this in an ultrasonic bath for 14 days and gave it rust preventative, blah, 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 and then bored it out, then you could shoot it, and therefore you can't have it in this state. Luckily, it's a lever action, so I'm being ridiculous, but that's the potential.
Well, it's still,
you can't just say, oh, it's old, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's still classifies.
With this gun, you can.
Well, it still classifies as a firearm, right? So, I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So potentially, like this wouldn't be okay for just everybody, but it's about I'm definitely having to get to, what am I trying to say? Like, the most extreme situation, would this ever be considered more than just wall hanger? But somebody like in New Jersey or something, it'd probably be the place. Like, you could have this in your car in New Jersey, and that'd be the cop that would say, nope, this is technically a gun, and for all those reasons I just said, you could still consider it a gun if you're going to
Or
jail or something.
like, back in the day, the National Guard did trainings and stuff around here all the time. What if I was metal detecting? I was big into that at one time. What if I was metal detecting and I found a literal machine gun from the 30s or something, right? Um, that's even though it's rusted, it's still a machine gun. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then
So
boom, federal offense to have it.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
again, it would be like, it would probably not, more than likely 80% of the chance, like they're going to go, oh, you found a rusty thing. Oh, be careful because ha ha ha, that's a machine gun, but they're not going to bother you about it. But at
right.
the same time, they're not going to let you keep it. I don't think anybody's going to go, oh, yeah, just take that machine gun home, even though it's a little
I
bit
don't think that.
rusty.
Yeah, I don't think they would either. Right.
Anyway, so it was an interesting one, and it happens, I guess. I think it would be kind of neat to find a firearm out in the middle of nowhere. Like, say, I've got a 1911 that somebody found out in the desert south of Fort Huachuca, the military intelligence base here in Tucson,
Right.
or fort here in south of Tucson, I should say. There's about, I mean, you could walk from Fort Huachuca to Mexico. It's not, I mean, you wouldn't even break a sweat. It's not that far from Mexico. So somewhere south of Fort Huachuca, somebody found this in the desert. So what I like about that 1911 is, one, it's a 1911 that the Army owned, and now I own it. And two, somebody got reamed for that. Like, there's no way somebody went home from that walk and didn't get in trouble. And somebody was out there looking for that gun, I bet.
All right.
Unless it fell out of an airplane or something. That could happen, I suppose. Okay, so okay, I'm guessing these two came. No, they couldn't have come together. I don't know why this one. This one just says the slide really seems to take a lot of effort. Is that adjustable? So let's assume that's a pistol, semi-auto. Unless again they're just not familiar with terms and they're talking slide like a bolt or a bolt carrier on a semi-auto rifle, but more than likely on the slide they're talking a semi. So if a slide takes a lot of effort, I mean, with somebody who's asking a question like this, you gotta, I would think right off, they're inexperienced or amateur or something. So they might have put their spring in goofy, like they
I
could
missed
have
or
a part
misunderstood the question, apparently.
There is, it's a weird broken question. It just says the slide really seems to take a lot of effort. Period. Is that adjustable? So it's like a weird fragment of a sentence question.
So
I'm just addressing it as if it was like I say somebody who's just doesn't know how to ask the question good because they don't know the parts we're talking about.
yeah, it's hard to rack. Yeah, it's hard to rack. So some firearms are just hard to rack. No way around it. They're hard to rack. Either they're hard to rack because of the spring tension, and that spring tension is required, at least a certain amount of it, right? Has to do with the design of the firearm and that slide to operate under the um, what am I thinking of? Dang it. Under the power of the cartridge or whatever, right? So um, the terminology there is escaping me. Somebody out in the chat or something will help with that. But anyway, um, so all of that is it's a balance, right? So if you don't have enough spring tension, you can throw that slide back entirely too fast and too hard and break something. If you've got too much spring tension, then the slide's not going to go far enough back, which means it's not going to chamber the next round and might not even eject the one you got and or chamber the next round. So there's a balance when you talk about springs on the slides. Now, is there lead way where you can lighten that spring up a little bit and in turn potentially lighten up the rack? Uh, yeah, to an extent, but you're just talking a few pounds. And typically, if you're having trouble racking that slide, a few pounds is not that much, and it's not really going to make that much of a difference. The other thing about something being hard to rack, and you got to pay attention to this too, is it, how gunked up is it? How dirty is it? Is it well lubricated? There's a lot of things like that to look at as well. And then also got to mention when one is hard to rack. When you've got one that's hard to rack, sometimes it's not hard to rack the because of the spring in the slide, the guide rod recoil spring. it's hard to rack because it's doing other actions as it's moving back, like say cocking the hammer. And then so when it does that, you're also, when you rack it back, a Browning bookmark, for example, is this way. Once you cock it once and that hammer is back, that slide will rack super, super, super easy because you've already you've already pulled the hammer back with that first rack. But the first rack takes a little more force to rack it, right?
Because you're pushing two springs.
Right.
You're
Yes,
pushing two springs
exactly.
for just the one. Yeah.
Exactly. So understanding the way the mechanics there work. But I think
Well,
effectively,
and what you're talking about there, sometimes you can't pull the hammer back. So you're always pushing two springs. So it'll seem really a lot of effort, but it's always because you're doing two things, and it's just
right,
always going to be that. It's not a
right.
lot of effort. It's just
Well,
the effort that gun needs.
correct. Think about it in terms um of a single action, double action revolver, right? So you could cock the hammer or you could pull the trigger, which rotates the cylinder and cocks the hammer and fires, right? And so which of those seems to take more force, right? Obviously, the double action, pulling the trigger and doing three things at one time, takes a little more force or effort, right? So it's the same principle. I think effectively, though, when he's talking about the adjustment there, I think effectively, again, other than making sure things are clean, polished, lubricated, that sort of thing, I think effectively, no. If you have trouble racking it, you're going to have trouble racking it because even dropping the recoil spring recoil spring weight or even a mainspring weight, if we're talking about a hammer related issue, I think even dropping that a few pounds, I think that's negligible. To dropping that for operation with certain ammunition is one thing. Dropping that for an actual feel and, oh, well, this is much easier, even though I only dropped the spring 2 pounds. I've seen no, because I've used various springs and various firearms before, and I don't see uh what would you call that? A realized difference or a tangible difference?
And then I was just going to add another angle because these are good. These are good, interesting questions because there's different ways to answer it, right? The other one I would say is like adjusting a slide isn't the thing. So that would be like this guitar's out of tune. How do I cut the neck and change the length of the neck to get the guitar in tune? Like there's places that you tune a guitar and it's not cutting the neck off and changing it. So you wouldn't a bad slide is an indication of, or is a consequence of all the things that Clover had mentioned. So there could be junk and gunk. That's 99% of the time. It's just a cleaning. Now, if you're really not sure, go to the store and find a new model and compare yours with that one. And that's something that if it's something you're not familiar with, you might need to use as a calibration, right? But yeah, I just wanted to add that never adjust. There is no such thing as an adjustable recoil spring on a pistol because that's not the place you do that. The gun is built around that math that Clover was talking about, like the dwell between what were we trying to say, like the blowback or the
Blowback, yeah.
The reforce or whatever, the opposite force of the bullet going forward pushes the case back. There's a little bit of what do you call, like tightness or resistance created by the brass pushing out against the chamber, and that's all calculated in the equation, and it's designed to allow and dwell enough time, enough resistance and friction so that it all happens in choreographed time. So there's so many things that can dink that up that you don't immediately go to the giant things and you don't start knocking down the foundations. The weight of the slide, the spring that it's designed for, are usually big enough and have enough mass that they're not the problems. Those are the things that everything else is based around. You're looking at something little like cleaning or a part that's in the wrong place. And the only other thing I'll add is when Clover talked about having a gun that has two springs, a hammer spring that has to go back as you're pulling the slide, there could be a broken pin or part in the hammer spring because it, either is a spring or a hammer you can click back on your own single action, or if it's part of the mechanism of the slide going back, you may be feeling it in the operation of the slide going back, but what you're really getting is a friction from that broken pin inside a hammer spring, way different, kind of hidden inside the gun, two springs in instead of like right on the surface where you'd expect it to be in the slide.
Well, and let's not dance around the fact that some guns are just hard to rack. And I think that part of, if we're talking about a new firearm owner here that's asking this question, then if they've seen is firearms in video games and movies, I mean, how easy does that look, right? To rack a slide.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
comparing it to BS. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like it takes some force to rack a slide. It just does. Now there's stuff like the Smith and Wesson EZ. They've made strides in making that, um, making that easier to do on some models in recent history. But overall, it definitely takes a little bit of force to rack a slide. You have to not be shy about it. You have to grab hold of it. Use the proper motions to rack it, which I like to do. By my strong hand on the grip, hand on the slide, and do a push pull method where you pull the slide back, you push the frame down, whatever at the same time. A lot of people will hold it with their one hand and try to just what I call slingshot the slide, right? And grab it with two fingers or something like that and try to pull it back. And it's like, grab it like you mean it, and use that push pull method.
Well, there's
And
grabbing it with your fingertips is like what you're talking about, and then there's grabbing it with the palm of your hand, like with a
right,
mitten versus the fingertips and the gloves.
right. Yep,
So
exactly.
that's a good point, and that's kind of what Tara's saying there. Um, Glad you asked her to say it in the chat there. She can't jump in, I guess, but often the purchase area of the slide makes a difference. The smaller it is, the harder to hold on to. Use a full size gun in a lower caliber for training someone with hand issues. That's a great point, and kind of what you kind of said there too. This could easily be read that way. From that perspective, the slide seems to take a lot of effort. Is that adjustable? And if someone said to somebody, "Oh, you're old or you're feeble, you want this little gun," yeah,
Right.
fingers that aren't nimble or strong have problems with little tiny slides. That's a great thing. I like to also recommend what Clover said. Like, in other words, grab it like you're grabbing a steering wheel or something. Like you're grabbing it with your whole, I don't know, steering was a stupid example, but grab it like, with your whole hand. But all often when I was at the shop and somebody would complain about like, they wanted a tiny 380, but they didn't know how to rack it. And it's dangerous and it's less mechanically to your advantage to hold it out with your arms extended and your elbows extended, hold it out in front of you like a isosceles stance or something, and try to rack it how 99% of everybody does when they first pick up a gun. For whatever reason, it's just more comfortable. But instead, if you take your left arm, let's say if you're left-handed, and you hold that slide in your whole hand, you wrap your fingers around the top of the slide in a way that seems like it would get in the way of the bullet going in there. And then you hold that up to your heart, like if you were going to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance or something. And then you take your other hand, like you're going to do a push-up, and you just push on the back of the grip with your right hand. What you're doing is you're using your tricep on your left hand to hold the gun to you, right, which is very difficult to somebody to push away. So you're going to use your other hand to push it away. And what happens is the spring gives and not your triceps, because you're using tricep right, and tricep. So that way somebody uses their whole hand muscle, their wrist, and their kind of whatever you call that, I forget what it's called, tension towards yourself, that it's easier to hold those muscles, constricting muscles towards yourself. And then right, you use your push-up muscle to push just the bottom. You don't even have to hold the gun. You just hold the gun with the slide in your big, with your hand, and then you just kind of push on it at the bottom. And then what happens is you get it forward and you let go with your right hand, and it just strings back into place basically. Or you can let go with your left hand, I guess, doesn't matter, whichever you choose, but it's going to snap into place with the round in the chamber and you're good to go. And that's a lot of times you end up in a better position, safer. You got the muzzle in control and everything, but also,
right,
it's a lot easier to manipulate. So that's a great, it's really cool. So that weird question ended up being a great opportunity to address it like at least 4 different ways, I think.
Well, I always teach, like I said, push pull, right? So when you're pushing down with the one hand, pull back or pull up or whichever direction I guess you're holding it, right? With your other, I mean, that's just more force, more motion going on. So it makes things easier because you've got both of your muscles, right? The muscle in your right arm and the muscle in your left arm working on it rather than just one.
Sitting here, I didn't realize that I'm sitting here. Let's see if I do this and then this, right? So what I was talking about is, let's say that was the pistol grip. We're talking about grabbing the slide with your whole hand up here. I'm saying bring that into your shoulder here, right? So now the gun is up here, and now you're just push up in with this hand. So that's what I'm talking about. You're saying push pull. I'm only saying sometimes for people that have really bad arm and stuff, just using this hand to push lets you kind of anchor it here. But yeah, what we're talking about is having good control and then using our arm muscles instead of our finger muscles or our
Right. Yeah.
wrong
Yep.
button. Oops. All right. So then let's see. Recent estate find: 62 Winchester 30 with a serial number faintly scratched on the side of the receiver. Refinish or not? Bought for resale? No, never refinish. What do you say?
Nope. No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, there's never a reason to resell. If there's a reason to refinish it, let the buyer figure that out, because you are only trying to sell it to the most amount of people, and 99% of 99% of people do not want your gun the way you think it looks good. They want the gun the way it is. So yeah. And a 62 Winchester is probably worth a couple of bucks. I don't think it's so old that it's worth $1 billion, but basically a pre 84 or something means that it was made out of milled parts internally instead of stamped parts internally.
Right.
At least that's what I've been told. So that's why they're stronger guns, more sought after.
Right. Yep.
Whether or not that's a big deal, I guess. They feel a little cheesier. Like when you pick up a new one, they feel a little more like a Matchbox car than a gun.
And along the lines of that, since we were talking about this particular question involves, flipping, right? Resale. I'm a big proponent of making sure that you keep original parts with things. So, if you replace the sights, replace the stock, replace this or that or the other, keep those originals, because if you're planning on selling or flipping, putting it back original sometimes can broaden the market to which you're pushing that, putting that out in front of. So, and then if they want the extras, offer the extras with it, of course, if they want them, but it may help it sell quicker.
Black Hat is saying pre 64 used to be a big deal. Am I mixing it up? Is it 64 and not 84?
Yeah,
it could be pre 64.
Yeah,
I'm not good at remembering stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about a lever, right?
Yeah.
30, yeah, 64.
So this one is from November 25th last year. I have a 1963 6.5 Jap military rifle. Excuse me. Will 6.5 Grendel ammo work for this gun? If not, what ammo do I need? This gun was passed down to me, and I don't know what ammo it takes. That is super interesting. Kind of an example of what we talked about before. Not so much with terminology or with, I guess, technical jargon, but with terminology and numbers. So there's nothing wrong with this question, but holy moly, no, it won't work. I mean, they won't fit. So I don't think there's a problem. Like, there's no way a Grendel's fitting into that. 6.5 Jap, we can't do nothing about it. That's what it's called. I mean, I've never even heard it called 6.5 Japanese. That's just,
I haven't either. Yeah.
But it's the military caliber from World War II. The Japanese rifles are notorious for being like quickly made and made to be shot a few times before they didn't need them anymore, kind of thing. So they're not great guns. I would not assume that a Japanese rifle is gonna do well with overpowered ammo of any kind, or modern ammo or anything like that. I wouldn't even ever shoot a Japanese rifle personally, or a Japanese gun. It's worse than Chinese. Like I have no faith in the metal over time or any of that kind of stuff, but just based on the condition I've ever seen them in, I've never seen one that I'm like, oh wow, I'm confident in shooting this thing. Right. I don't know. Do you have any difference of opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. I mean, if you're talking about using some old milsurp stuff, or you're a somewhat experienced reloader, right? You load your own rounds. I'm a big proponent of, after guns, you're talking about guns with certain wear and age and that sort of thing on them, really running light loads through them, right? You're shooting them for the nostalgia, to be able to shoot 100-year-old gun or whatever the case may be, right? You're not shooting it to, well, I mean, I guess you could be shooting it in some type of an old gun competition, but odds are you're shooting it for the nostalgia, just to be able to shoot 100-plus-year-old gun or whatever. So use the lightest load ammo you can possibly get by with. That way you don't strain it any more than it has to be strained, because I mean, they're old girls, right? You wouldn't, what's the thing? You wouldn't walk up to your 90-year-old grandpa and punch him full force in the arm, right?
You used to be able to take this, grandpa,
like you would your brother, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so
You used to be your grandpa when he was in his 50s didn't have a problem with you punching him in the shoulder as hard as you could, right? Now that he's 90, you probably don't want to do that. Not that he couldn't take it, he might be able to take it, but you might also
might
break
break his
something.
arm. Yeah.
Right.
And depending on, well, anyway, so yeah, we have a massive difference in opinion there. So you don't like the wall hanger, like you don't get the wall hangers, and I get it. Like I can understand not liking a thing that's, but I guess I get shooting a gun, but I have absolutely no interest in shooting old guns. Like there's no, I would feel so bad if my stupid trigger pull and stupid inkling destroyed a gun that was cool in any way, shape, or form. And I like, what I call a cool gun is way bigger, broader definition than most people. But man, I just can't see being the one to kill it just for the sake of it. Now, if there's some reason or something, maybe because it's just a thing, but at the same time, man, especially like a family one or something, I just don't get, at some point I understand retiring things and just letting them, I mean, I can see fiddling with them, but at some point, it's going to rust to the point where you're not even going to fiddle with it because that means you got to change the spring. And do you want to change the spring on Grandpa's gun? You know what I mean? It's just, anyway, so I know there's going to always be that weird line, but that would be an interesting show sometime.
But let's be honest about the vast majority of the vast majority of firearms built throughout history that are in functioning order and well to maybe decently maintained.
I would say
right?
Of all the guns out there, 80% of them are safe to shoot, maybe more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if they're taken care of, if they're maintained, if they're, I'm not talking about, you've gotten this heirloom, you've got this whatever, you know nothing about it, you haven't taken it apart, you haven't cleaned it, you haven't checked for wear, you haven't done, so when I talk about this, I mean, my things have been completely disassembled on a table. I've completely gone through, I've looked at everything, I put them back together, I've run a, function check with my hand and everything else. I've run light loads through them, just enough to cycle an action or get out the barrel or whatever, right?
And I would definitely do all that for sure.
Like that type of stuff. So it's a much different thing. So the likelihood of me doing that and tearing one up is slim because if I took it apart and I'm like, you know what, this one probably is not, and I decide I don't want to replace a part, let's say, right? I take it apart and I go, well, this is probably not going to hold up if I don't replace this part. And I decide not to replace it. Well, I'm just going to turn it. I'm going to flip it. Right. And if it was an heirloom, I don't know that I would do that. Okay. I'll concede that to you. If it was something that was grandfather's, great grandfather's, whatever, then it might go in a shadow box on the wall or, something
like you
that.
talked about with the furniture, you could take Grandpa's spring out and a couple of springs out, put them in a box, put new springs in. And then if you ever needed to, you could bring it back to Grandpa's condition, but you could also shoot it without breaking Grandpa's springs.
This is true. Right.
So there are creative ways to have the best of both worlds potentially.
Right. But it's like you were talking about with the AKs earlier with the question from Rob, right? We're the firearm community, the gun community is so diverse in the way we think and what we expect and what we like and what we don't like and how we do things. And, that's one of the beauties of it is that, we don't have to agree. There's absolutely, I got no problem with you getting one and hanging it on the wall, having your whole house just full, and there's no place to hang pictures of your kids for guns on the wall. If that's what you want to do. I don't have a problem in the world with that.
Yeah, the only time it ever really gets into issues is when two people are fighting over one or something. There's a rare numbers, but most of the time, again, that's the outliers.
Right.
Or maybe like brothers fighting over if you're going to shoot or wall hang, like that rare gun from the family, like that one. Nobody can get involved in that either. That's the thing. Like that's them. That's their problem. They get to deal with that one. So this one's interesting. How do we double click on these? When they're long, I have to figure out how to get them to show up on screen. I was hospitalized as a minor for mental health issues. A therapist told my family they should and had a doctor check me out and recommended to put me in there. I'm now an adult and was wondering if I can legal own a gun, and now I'm doing better in Indiana. So obviously we're not doctors and I don't know nothing about being a lawyer or nothing, but interesting. So I don't think there's anything stopping you, right? It just says that you've been deemed, like it would be, so the things that would determine it are any state laws of Indiana that I'm not aware of any. extra state laws in Indiana that put extra burden or ownership or whatever on a resident in order to own a gun than the federal laws. The federal laws would go to 1968 Gun Control Act that added the 10 questions to the 4428, created a 4473, added the 10 questions to it. Maybe it wasn't it created them, but whatever, added the 10 questions for sure. And one of those 10 questions was, have you been, I mean, I know it because I've seen it so many times, but I guess I don't remember it verbatim. But something like, have you been judged mentally, something by a judge, or are you in the care of a doctor, something like that? Like basically, have you been determined to be non-capable, or are you currently in observation or something? So it sounds like from my non-doctor, non-lawyer side, non-cop or whatever, anything else, non-judge, that if it was something that happened in the past and it's not like something that hangs over you, like I'm, deemed, whatever that's called, I don't know what the words are, then as long as that doesn't apply to you, then it sounds like they're good to go. But again, you'd want to go, talk to a doctor, talk to something like a resource like Walk the Talk America, perhaps?
I would say maybe a first step would be getting with Walk to Talk America, and they could probably put you in touch with somebody, I'm sure, in Indiana that could fully answer that question. I like you, G. I'm not a doctor, nor am I a lawyer, and I play neither on YouTube. But first of all, it said he was a kid, I think, in there or something, and so there's a big difference between minor and adult there. If a judge was not involved, right, there was no legal ramifications or something around that. That's a totally makes it a totally different situation as well. If it was your parents putting you in there, um, isn't necessarily considered against your will, like an adult, right? If a bunch of us band together as friends of G-Webs and had him committed against his will, well, that's him getting put in there against his will, right? You against your will. So a kid, like I said, little different situation there. So I would not think that would be an issue. I'm in agreement with you, G. But I would highly advise checking out something like Walk the Talk America, trying to get in touch with somebody in Indiana that knows the legalese there, before you do something that gets you in trouble where you can't, right? Because there may be some nuance there in the legalese in Indiana that you can't, but it may be a really easy fix, right? Of filing some paperwork or something like that, and you're free and clear, right? And so you wouldn't want to take the advice of people on the internet and go do that, and then get caught, quote unquote, lying on the 4473, and then that screw up all your future chances. So do your due diligence, so to speak, on it. It's what I would recommend.
So I guess Black Sat said two things. He goes, get a lawyer, check it out. If you're involuntarily committed, you can be disqualified. That's probably the word or one of the characteristics I was looking for, involuntarily committed.
But as a youth, right? Do you even have the involuntary capability, right? Your parents say go. I don't
Well,
know
and does it go
counts.
away when you're 18, like a criminal record?
This is
right?
true too. Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
And it may not. I don't know. And then he says, no, definitely hire a lawyer. If you don't know and try to purchase, they can arrest you. It doesn't have to be a judge involved, and there is no age limit. There's tons of cases every year where people got committed as kids and are now disqualified. I could actually, so he knows some circumstances. So, okay, great. Go. That's perfect. So that's actually, I was going to say before he said that, I was going to say it's a cool question to bring up because it's something that's often overlooked either because of, just embarrassment, or people don't think it's appropriate, or, like, oh, this is a discussion about guns, not my health. Well, guess what? If it affects your purchase of guns, then it's a gun discussion, right?
Right.
Just like these Russian bots are annoying as heck.
And I want to say thanks to RL and thanks to Tara as well, because that's one great thing. PNW Woods out there said that he likes this series, just saying. And that's one of the cool things about this. When you have folks that show up out there in the chat, we've got all kinds of help. So having more than one opinion, more than one, one or two people, the more, what do they say? 2 heads are better than 1, 5 heads are better than 3. And so that's kind of cool to see with this series too.
Let's see. And since we're talking about mental health awareness, Brooke Cheney does a show every Saturday, a consistent effort to give people tools and awareness and ability to change the dynamic, change the entire conversation on people that are our adversaries, people that hate our property and are so politically motivated that they're driven to only remove our property when there's often other alternatives, especially when we're talking about saving lives. So this was talking about mental health as relation to purchasing a firearm, but when we talk about mental health and firearms, another big part of it is the ability, access to mental health help, and the suicide awareness tools and techniques and skills and things. Those kind of efforts can be, well, are multiply effective, multiply more effective or whatever against where to prevent loss of life, because 2 out of every 3 firearms deaths, 6 out of every 10 firearms deaths, 600 out of every 1,000 firearms deaths are suicide. So when we can help people with mental health awareness and get rid of the stigmas and the what do we say, like in whatever the social whatever against talking about it, then and we become comfortable with talking about it, not only are we able to deal with it so that in our own conversations in our community, I'm not afraid of saying the word community, the community is what it is. It's people on both sides from all angles that come together in a common thing. And this common thing is a foundational, fundamental civil right, the ability to own this property that makes us not only equal against each other and criminals, but big old government and whatnot, right? All the stuff we all agree on. Anyway, the idea that making mental health awareness and the topic less, less uncommon is awesome. And the Brooke, I guess, is what I was getting a commercial here for Brooke. She'll every Saturday has a consistent effort to give people skills so that these conversations don't get overlooked or skirted around. So I'll be linking to it again. DJ already linked to it. We linked to it at the beginning of the show. Probably a link to it in the description. But check it out every Saturday. Her channel is a Great Start Shooting School, and it's Suicide Prevention Saturdays is the project. What the heck is with these things? Probably an effort to get some, it's like a probe. They don't do anything for no reason. So they're probably attempting to figure out who's like attentive, which streams are full of individuals who are paying attention. Perhaps it might be more than that. I haven't seen enough of them yet to figure out a pattern or whatever, but there's definitely reason. There's nothing that's done unintentionally. The fact that they're obviously Russian characters leads me to believe that they're probably not Russian at all, right? There's either
Right.
something intentional or they're attempting to look like something. So yeah, this is 2022. We had weird stuff happen in 2018. We had weird stuff happen in 2008. And before all this, we had weird mail come to the house. So we'll get used to it and overcome. They can't stop our message. All right, so let's keep going. What are your thoughts on 6.5 Creedmoor, and what brand would you go with? I don't have thoughts on it because it's not a caliber I care at all about. So I don't have any option on brands. So this one's Clover's forte.
6.5 Creedmoor. Let's see. So thoughts on it. It's a great cartridge. Sadly, has overtaken maybe 308 in a lot of different ways. And I say sadly because 308, one of my favorite cartridges. But I recognize it. It is. I don't think it's a fad. I don't think it's a trend. And there's enough qualified people using it, whether that's hunting or competition or whatever at this point, to call it legit. So that's my thoughts. As far as brand, was he getting at ammunition there, or was he getting at firearms, or where he was going with the brand?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I immediately went to brand of ammo because I got ammo in the brain. When I think of something like that, I'm thinking ammo. But yeah, you're right. That could easily be read with what model. I guess he'd probably say model, or she would probably say model.
So,
but I have no idea who this one.
To go ammo, I mean, if you're talking about some higher end stuff, I would say Hornady or maybe Nosler would be a couple of my go-tos in that case when we're talking about ammo. That's strictly opinion, and you can certainly plink around and do other things with other brands. Boy, when we get into the firearms, that opens a big can of worms. Because are you talking about, um, good Lord, are you talking about an AR platform, or are you talking about a bolt action, or are you talking about, heck, Henry even makes one in a lever. It's rotary mag, I think, lever, but it's a lever nonetheless. The long Ranger, LONG Ranger. Um, when I think 6.5 Creed, probably just my FUD mind at work, but I go straight to bolt action, right? And so, if we're going to talk brand and 6.5 Creed and bolt action, right now, reasonably priced stuff that is really nice. I'm going to say Savage. Economically priced stuff. I'm going to say probably I'm probably gonna say something like the Thompson Contenders got one, the Thompson Compass. Uh, Pretty nice
Rifle or pistol?
rifle. Yeah, 6.5 Creed is rifle. So yeah. So I'm gonna say the Thompson
Is
Compass.
6.5 too big for a regular contender?
It well, I'm not talking about a contender though. We're talking about the
No, I know, but
Compass.
I'm
Triple
just
thing.
that made me wonder: is 6.5 a contender for a contender?
I'm sure. I don't know that they make one, but I'm sure with some of the other calibers that you can get in the contender, the 6.5 is probably okay. Assuming you could hold on to it. Um, so yeah, I would say the Thompson Compass in the economical end of a rifle bolt action, and then Savage in the medium. If you want high end, the sky's the limit. I mean, you've got Christensen, you could go Bergara, you could go so many different ways with that.
So then we get the next one is from November last year. Can I carry a gifted handgun in my vehicle at the age of 18 in the state of Texas? And this is November. This is
Nice.
important. November 11th or November 19th of 2021. So a gifted handgun, meaning the person didn't go to the store. This is a father gave a son or gave a gun to his son or daughter. Grandfather gave a gun to grandson, granddaughter, right? Any of those options. I guess a grandmother, same thing, whatever. So I'm trying to think of other options in Texas. Can an uncle give a gun, or anybody? I guess can you can just go
Anybody
up
in
and say like,
Texas.
"Hey kid, I known you my
Here.
whole life, or
Yep.
your whole life, and you're a good kid. Here's your
Yep.
gun."
Yeah,
So
Texas,
now that
yes. Doesn't
person
matter.
has that gun who's 18, and they're wanting to go around in their vehicle, and they want to have that thing. What's the answer?
Mhm. Sadly, no. Constitutional carry does not extend beyond uh, below the age of 21. So, sadly, that was an amendment. If you remember all the discussion and amendments and all the other things that we watched, nearly a year ago now. Yeah, that was one of them, and they weren't able to get it in there. Um,
Well, hold on. Okay, so I understand that. I'm not debating that. But in Texas, can an individual of any age carry a gun in their vehicle, or do they have to have a permit or a thing? Because
in
a vehicle, like having it in your vehicle, is not concealed carry, and it's not. I'm hanging out at the store. It's your property, and it's in most cases, I think Texas included, it's your castle. It's like you're
right,
in your home, right?
right.
So can a 18-year-old, not regardless of carry status, can they have property in their vehicle if they left it in the vehicle and they
You
weren't at a school or something?
okay? So let me start off this by saying there's a really good channel with attorneys from Texas that could answer this from a legal perspective better than I can. So a couple of things are at play, right? So number one is where do you have it in your vehicle? Okay. So um if it's in a holster just laying in the seat, that's a much different situation than if it's in the console, if it's in the glove box, it's in the trunk. Um so if you're talking about, and I'm guessing the premise here is they want it in their vehicle for some type of defensive means. Um,
Well, that's the thing. You're actually applying that because we see
right.
handgun and we think defense. I mean, I'm not like scolding. I'm just saying I'm thinking the same thing. But it could be, can I go to the range with this? They didn't say, can I go to the range because I'm
Right.
18? But it
Right.
could be asking just, can I get to the range? Can I go to my friend's house?
Right. If we're talking about transport, okay, I've got decades of you know, um, background or whatever in youth shooting sports, right? So I've seen lots of 16, 17, 18-year-olds traveling all over Texas with their firearms for competition, right? Could be pistols, could be shotguns, could be rifles, a litany, right? Ammo was always separate from the firearm. The firearms were always in cases. Transport to me is a whole different subject. And so, as long as it's obvious that's what they use it for, right? In other words, that 16-year-old, let's say, gets pulled over. You got any firearms? Yes, sir. I've got my competition shotgun and rifle in the back seat. They may ask you to step out. They may ask about the ammo, but they're going to look in and it's going to be obvious, right? It's like, oh, okay, not a problem. The kid more than likely is going to be able to, provide some kind of validity or anything. But regardless, I've actually seen that play out with my own daughter before.
And that's just going to
So
happen because kids don't drive good and their parents
potentially,
can't always
yeah,
go with them to every
yeah.
shoot. So it's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. It's and law enforcement officers understand that. It's not like they pull over a kid every day that says, "Yeah, I'm going to a shooting competition and I have guns," right? I mean, that doesn't happen that often.
Well, and
So
every officer only has to hear that the first time, and then every other time they know the deal.
yeah, and I'm sure they talk about it around the water cooler and stuff too. Hey,
Oh,
I
yeah, good point. Yeah, exactly.
pulled a 16-year-old there over today that had 4 guns in the car, or whatever, right?
More
I'm
likely,
sure
it's like this kid had this gun. I wish I could afford that, or more.
that's true too. More often than not, it's just they're in cases, and the officer doesn't even ask them to open the case. Right? It's like, why? I mean, the kid says there's a gun in the case, so there's a gun in the case, right?
It don't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really. We didn't pull you over for that, but if you're talking about defensive use, I would say make sure that, because with constitutional carry as well as with the license to carry, you can have it in your seat, whatever the case may be, if it's holstered. If I was under the age of 21, which is sadly, like I said, exempt from constitutional carry, and did not have an LTC, which, by the way, you can, from 18 to 18, 19, and 20, can apply for an LTC in Texas. So if you do a lot of traveling, maybe it's for school or whatever, you could actually petition Austin to let you get the LTC, which would kind of be cool if that's something that's this particular person wanted to pursue. But my advice would be, again, not from a legal perspective, just my opinion on this, would be to make sure that it's not in visible sight. So in the console, in the glove box, in the whatever, when the officer pulled you over, you know, if they ask, right, let them know.
And it's not
Otherwise,
because you want it to be out of sight as much, like because you're hiding it, as much as like to be in compliance with law, it needs to be in a place that it's not accessible, because you're not carrying it around to like hunt or carrying it around to be in some kind of gun battle. You're carrying it because you're transporting it. In such case, it should be out of, or it's not supposed to be just loose laying around or whatever. Where if you have a CCW and you are busy and you just drop a gun on your passenger seat and you're about to drive 1 block away, pick it back up, you can do that with your CCW. They don't really want you doing that without a CCW for whatever reason, I guess, right?
well, even with your LTC, it's got to be in a holster. You're not
Oh,
supposed to just
interesting.
throw a
Okay, so
gun
you
in
guys
the
have a
seat.
weird caveat. I didn't realize that part.
Yeah, you're not supposed to just throw a gun in the seat. Now, let's be honest. If you've got your gun over there in the seat, now you can just put a rag over it,
Yeah,
put an
it's
old T-shirt
literally
over it. I mean,
compliance
literally, you
is
could do.
ridiculous. Yeah.
But in this situation, because I'm going to call this kid a kid because we're talking 18 to 20. But in this kid's situation, I would not advise that they just throw a T-shirt over it. I would advise that it's actually put somewhere, probably in the console that's closest to him, and him or her. And if they're worried about self-defense, they want easier access. So I would say probably in the console. And then I wouldn't even worry about disclosing if they got pulled over or anything, unless they were asked. But if you get asked, don't lie, because that could lead into a whole other ball of wax. But the whole idea of who gave it to you is irrelevant. Just to address that part of the question. Here in Texas,
Well,
it
that's a
doesn't
good way to
matter.
break it down too, because that was obviously on their mind, or they wouldn't have put it in there. And
Yeah.
as I'm reading it, as you're saying it, I'm splitting hairs, because it says, "Can I carry a gifted handgun in my?" If they would have said, "Can I transport a gifted?" Right. So I think the word "carry" implies defense, as opposed to
Yeah.
I'm going to the range.
So it's a really great area with 18, 19, and 20. So the technical answer from my understanding is yes. But there's caveats and there's nuance because it falls in that gray area, right? Of it's not really covered under constitutional carry. It just falls under castle doctrine, under an extension of your home, as you pointed out earlier. And so with that, out of sight, out of mind. I wouldn't have it anywhere where anybody's going to see it, which is a good idea when you're carrying a firearm in the vehicle anyway. Let's be honest. But yeah, I would practice that. And then again, if you were asked, be compliant and all that good stuff. If you do get pulled over, and likely you're in Texas, you're not going to have a problem. Times you have problems in Texas is when you've got a smart aleck attitude, and even if the cop walks up and he's got a smart aleck attitude, that's a good opportunity to practice de-escalation. Because
I would say I don't disagree with you. That's probably where most of the friction. But I was just as you're saying that, just to play devil's advocate or whatever, I'm going, and then I'm thinking, except that every once in a while there's going to be like an opportunity or a situation, I guess, where with no intent or no whatever the circumstances, you'll just be weird and maybe the lighting's weird because of the way that somebody drove past real fast. The cop just doesn't see something, and in those cases, like you say, having it in a case just avoids any confusion. You don't have to then go, oh no, there's a reason why it's not in a case, or
well, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it doesn't have to be case. But my thing is there was where I was going with this. Sure, you're going to get pulled over, and there's going to be law enforcement officers that have a chip on their shoulder. They caught their wife messing around the night before. Whatever the case may, maybe they had a death in the family. Their mom just passed away or something, right? Anything. Law enforcement officers are humans, and some of them are garbage humans, right? But some just have had a bad day, or they've had a bad morning, or they've had a bad evening, right? And so sometimes it gives us the opportunity, my opinion here, and nothing more, but sometimes if you get pulled over and an officer has an attitude, sometimes it's maybe an opportunity to practice de-escalation, right? If that's the case, can I make this as frictionless as possible for this officer? Can I smile? Can I be friendly? And potentially change his day if that's what's going on, right? It's just an officer that's having a bad day. And so, just wanted to take the opportunity to say that. I mean, if you're negative and ugly, and you're gonna get what you give a lot of times. And if you start off butthurt and swearing and calling officer names and all kinds of crazy stuff, then you're probably going to get some attitude back. That's all I'm saying.
And that applies to any age, so it's a good thing to say it to a kid so that they know it. But yeah, it applies to any age, of course.
Yeah,
but then I was going to say at the same time, like just being overly nervous or worried can be just as annoying or confusing or throw off the wrong signals to somebody too. So yeah, as being as calm and natural. In other words, telling somebody don't be belligerent when they're never going to be belligerent. Just don't be weird. Don't, just try to make it, like you just said, like try to make it as efficient as possible for the other person. And that's probably the best way to go with any bureaucracy.
And realizing too, this is one thing that we're talking about Texas here, so I can speak to this. Other states and counties and other things, not necessarily, but law enforcement officers, many of them here, have quotas, and that's set forth by the department, which is regulated by the city. There's all kinds of bureaucracy involved in that, right? Or I say bureaucracy or politics, whatever you'll call it, involved in that, right? And so they may need to pull X number of people over a month, right? And so now we could get into, we shouldn't get into the discussion of whether or not the officer should stay in a job that's that way. But let's say that officer is in that position for whatever reason, and they have to pull over, not give tickets to, right? Just have so many traffic stops.
They want interactions, but there's a reason for that, because otherwise, do you want a cop who just sits in a car moping all day and only talks to the criminals? Like, it's good to get people out there realizing that cops are not just pulling you over for bad things, and also cops to meet some regular people once in a while.
Sure.
Cops can't. I don't want cops to only know criminals and cops.
So it's some stupid thing like your tail lights out. I mean, tail lights go out, and you're not aware they go out. Cops know that, right?
Right.
And so he's just pulling you over. It's his chance.
Well, that's the key. They understand the whole thing. They're not out to get you. They're trying to help. Yeah. That's their opportunity to serve, right?
Potentially, right? I mean, you do have some that, want the opportunity to give you a ticket or whatever, right? But anyway, so that fills their quota for one more vehicle that they pulled over, and they know they're going to go up there and they're going to check a license and they're going to say, hey, your tail light's out, and well, you know, I'm just going to give you a warning today, get it fixed, right? But if they pull you over for that purpose and then you start flying off the freaking handle, well, guess what? You know, before you know it, they're going to give you all kinds of hassle just because it's like, hey, buddy, if you're going to be mean to me, I'm going to be mean to you. And I mean, how many times does that happen that in any job, right? How many times are you sitting at a restaurant and somebody's mean to the waitress, right? And you think, well, that person is going to get their food spit in, right? It's like, if you be mean to people, they're probably going to be mean back to
Well,
you.
I mean, the tit for tat or whatever you want to say, like, I'm not going to just debate you on that. I mean, that's a thing for sure. I'm not going to say every cop is that way, but I'll also put it this way. We expect police officers, especially after an atrocity happens, everybody starts pointing fingers and saying the system should have fixed this and who's the individual to blame, right? And in that situation, you'd be like, I expect the police to have found this person. So I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I don't know if this is a strategy or not, but to play devil's advocate, if someone gets pulled over and they're acting super weird, do you want the police to be like, excuse me, super weird person, let me back away and be polite and let you be on your way? Or do you want that police, somebody who's trained, they're not a therapist, but they're trained to understand what a crazy person is or a crazily acting person, whatever the polite way of saying a weird person is? I kind of want them to poke as much as they can possibly poke to make sure that person's not about to snap. Not necessarily to snap them, but to get them into a place where they can get some help because they're either stressed out. Often it's a blood pressure thing, or it's a diabetes thing, or it's I forgot my meds at home and I thought I could get home and now I'm about to rage. And it's, you know what I'm saying? Like there's some opportunities there. And I want someone who's deals with that on a daily basis to get in there and poke, because you don't want the little kid who's biking's in the way to be the kid who accidentally pokes that person who's, again, not normally a bad person, but they're stressed out because their blood pressure medicine or their grandma happened, or, you know, a million things that could freak people out momentarily. And that's, anyway, just opportunity to say a bunch of stuff there.
Well, yeah, and you're right. Law enforcement officers that are doing what law enforcement officers are supposed to do. Okay, let's say that. They have their pulse on the community, right? They know whether or not this person's acting weird.
Yeah, this has never seen this before, or I've seen this 100 times. Let me make sure it's not what I think it is.
Yeah, right. Just because of the amount of interactions they have on a daily basis. So yeah, I could tell that 20 years of having a retail store. You know what I'm saying? I could tell when somebody walked in the door exactly what kind of customer that was being.
Here's the
exactly
thing.
how I
let's
needed
talk
to deal
about
with
that. Let's talk about gun shops and that concept. People are like, I don't like going into a store and being told what gun I like. All right, well, guess what? Go hang out in a store for any length of time, because there's only about 8 gun shop customers. In fact, you could probably, I know there's been videos that are sarcastic about it, but if you really wanted to knock it down, hack 2A, there's like probably 8, maybe 12, but you only really ever meet 8 gun show, or gun shop buyers. Now, it may have changed. I haven't hung out in a gun shop for any length of time since 2017, so I'll admit things have changed drastically. However, I am also aware that I can adapt my perception here to that change. There's only so many, just like Clover said, if you own a candy shop, if you own a bicycle shop, there's only so many customers you're getting. Same thing in a gun shop. And those customers come in because they saw something on TV, somebody told them to do something, they're scared, whatever. And the hate and the, I'm going to get this cuzza or I'm angry. I mean, it must exist because everything has to exist, but I've never seen it. I've never heard of it. It's not just a rarity. It's like you can only find an outlier to even find it, kind of thing. So I'm saying, like, some of these things, some of the characteristics of like a gun shop potential. But anyway, some of that is like what you just said there. Like, anyway, you hear all this, like, I don't like being told what kind of this, or I don't like being told this. It's like, well, you're the 1 out of 99 who walk in there who fall into this weird, I'm going to come in acting, looking, presenting myself like this, but I really like that. 99% of people, you pigeonhole them or whatever that's called, profile them. They're happy. They walk out and they're satisfied forever. They come back and you profile them again and they're like, thank you for making my business quicker and smoother, like not wasting my time You know what I'm saying? The people that want to have all the options don't understand what it's like for people that don't want to know all the options. Can you tell me the best thing I need? Thanks for telling me the best thing I need. I'm done. Thanks. I'm out of here. That's what I really wanted. People that are like, can we sit here and talk for half an hour about it? They don't understand that mindset, right? Anyway, just a little sidetrack there again. But I was
No,
going
you're
to
right. I
ask.
mean, I couldn't tell you the number of, you have to be able to gauge that because I'll put it in terms of that you'll understand, but a different terminology with mine, which was, IT, a computer store, right? I had people that come in that they would set it down. Okay, what's going on? They would tell you, and they didn't want to have a conversation about what it could be, nothing else.
Oh, I can't even
Call
imagine.
me.
Yeah.
Just call me when it's fixed, and I'll come pay you and pick it up, right? And then
I'm
you
going to
had
do
people.
exactly the same thing 5 minutes later because I didn't ask.
Well, that's
And
true too. Yeah.
but
Then
yeah,
then
oh,
you've
yeah.
got the people that want to have a 30-minute conversation about what all it could be, right? And what all you're going to try to do and test, and they want to know the whole thing, right? And so
Yeah.
you've got those two extremes and everybody in between. And you're right, gun shops work exactly the same way.
Well, that's a great thing. I'd like to say that would be an interesting thing actually too, to just talk about all the craziness of back in the day computer stories. Actually, that would be kind of neat. Different channel, different topic.
Yeah,
But
right.
no, that's a really neat analogy there. I was going to ask a while ago, but we riffed on this one for a bit. It's already 2 hours. So do you got time to hit the top of this hour?
Let's do one. Let's do one more. Let's go for another 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah.
So there was a couple out here. I'm going to leave these because we can't finish November anyway, and there's no hurry to do these again. But there was a couple of questions live, even though that's cutting in line. You can go to askgunquestions.com and just type your question in there. But
that's the perk you get for being here, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care. I'm just giving them shit because Rob was all upset before that I didn't address his question quick enough. So Nicholas says, anyone know of a modern blow forward gun barrel? So I don't know if that's a language thing or if that's literally a thing. I'm just not familiar with that jargon. Followed up with, is there a military prototype competition and testing, which is also a weird set of words. Then it says weapons are obsolete. Just pay the district attorney to attack. Oh, so I guess this is weird. So I thought maybe this was.
Yeah, he got into some weird stuff there after.
Thought maybe it's just a language thing, but is it a foreigner?
I don't know.
Scratched yourself and put me in jail. So now he's bringing up all kinds of personal situations and whatever. So,
but he did get back into
whatever.
He did get back into the competition thing. So check out CMP. Civilian marksmanship program. And that's probably the best place to find your service rifle competitions and things like that going on would probably be with CMP to answer that question. So yeah, I mean, that type of thing is out there.
What about this blow barrel? You ever heard of a blow?
I'm guessing, is he talking about like the older shotguns that the barrel recoiled back?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I know there's different actions, right? We know that there's brake action, and we know that there's pump action, and there's bolt action, and there's semi-auto. That's like the things that we deal with, but there's a billion of them. And yeah, some of those had barrels that went forward. I know there's machine guns that barrels go all over the place because they're dealing with different types of masses and speeds, and where you gotta peen and hammer things are different. You know, you got to do things differently when you're dealing with giant, fast things. Mm-hmm. But those are words that are words, but aren't in the right order for our language or any terminology I'm familiar with. So if that's a troll, then it was a weird troll and it was awkward. But if it's a different language thing,
to answer that question, I don't know of any. I know some older shotguns that work that way. We're talking about that civilians can own anyway. I know some older shotguns, but other than that, I don't know of any.
All right, so Tony's saying open bolt. So that could be just again a terminology thing. If you're not familiar with the way of saying it, is there any modern open bolt types of firearms? No, because of stupid laws. Otherwise, there would be. They're kind of dangerous, but so what? Like there's competition shooters that probably, I don't know if they're faster or not. They're probably not that good. But the problem with open bolts is they're kind of dangerous because they're kind of opposite from the regular semi-autos. So most people can only deal with one manual of arms, or at least manual of arms that are very similar with each other. Look how crazy they get when there's not a manual safety for a Glock, right? So having something that when you drop the bolt, it goes off, freaks people out. And that is kind of a, for people that are drafted in the military, it's a lot to ask. for people that are, well, it's a glitch that a lot of people think people can't deal with. I don't want to suggest that people can't deal with it, because we can, but it's something that people perceive as being a problem. So they've made it illegal. Not illegal. They made it, well, I guess it is illegal to design a gun nowadays with it, but you can still own them. You just can't, they don't make guns with it anymore. So
Right.
they don't make them
I've
that
got
way. But they
I've got a
also,
22 that's that way.
I was just going to say, the other real technical problem, the reason nobody would make a gun that way is it doesn't use springs. Instead, it uses a big spring and a giant mass to keep the gun operating. So it works great in machine guns where you need to remove energy from the system so that you can quickly go the other way. But on a regular gun, it means too much of the gun is moving. And when you have a really tuned mathematical equation, taking one of the numbers and making them really big and making it fixed because it's a part of the gun, like you're not changing that except with a file, and you're only minusculely changing it, right? So really difficult to change that number in the equation is stupid. So instead, they make the gun as close to a teeter-totter as possible and let all the calibration be done with either like a gas valve or the ammunition. So it's just a dumb way to make a gun if you want to make a gun tunable. Does that make sense? Or like usable to the end user to the ultimate degree. And we're capitalists, and we like to fiddle with stuff, and we can't get enough arguing with each other about what's the perfect configuration of the dial or whatever. So if they're going to make guns for us to buy, if they make an Uzi and an AK, which are kind of like the same concept, have a big open mass that just works, period, it doesn't need little tiny microscopic little workings, then guns would just all work. We'd be conscripts. Every gun would be like caveman AKs, just shoot them and they work, and they're kind of accurate. But instead, they know they can market to us and we'll eat it up. The opposite, the German version, like the tiny millions of parts finally put together where we can fiddle with stuff. And that's why open bolts just aren't fun for US. If we had no NFA, we'd have a whole nother situation, because then the Mac 10 line would actually thrive again. And we'd see how open bolt sub guns can be super fun. And trust me, if you've never been to an open bolt, well, just a sub gun steel competition, you don't know what I'm talking about. But imagine how fun it would be to run around with a very small, full auto, very fast machine gun shooting at steel targets that you don't have to reset or tape, right? Taping machine guns is boring. It's like super boring to shoot machine guns at paper. But if you shoot machine guns at steel, super fun. It makes noise. You don't have to reset nothing. It's super fun. So anyway, you get rid of the NFA, you start making projectiles out of just pressed ceramic so that they're cheap and they just disintegrate when they hit steel. And subguns, open bolt subguns, everyone will know what I'm talking about. Open bolt subguns are the funnest thing. If you've never shot a machine gun in your hand, then that's why people think the Mac 10s are stupid. Mac 10s are the funnest guns you've ever shot, in my opinion. Well, one of the funnest guns you can ever shoot. Let's put it that way. I mean, ranted there a bit. That was, I don't know. Did we get a response or a follow-up? It's very rare. Only 5 guns in history had a blow forward barrel. Okay, well then, why are you asking that? So I guess that's just a question to show how you knew a trivia question, I guess. But no, I've never heard of those words put in that order before. Unless it's like what Clover was saying, some old shotgun or something. If you've never seen what a Uzi does to a VW, you're living wrong. That's true. When you do some of the machine gun shoots, they would usually put a vehicle out there. People do like shooting vehicles with machine guns. They grab the bullets pretty good too.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, again, thanks everybody for showing up. We're going to try to do this on a regular. Might do it twice a month. Kind of depends. But like I say, Dan Todd said he'd join in when he can. So that means we'll have some insight from a dude who owned a shop a couple of times. Clover and I have both hung out and kind of worked at shops before. And then all of us have owned guns our whole lives. So if you've got questions, you can go to askgunquestions.com. Feel free to throw anything in there. If you know people that are looking for stuff, just throw them over there or point them over there. And it gives us an opportunity to kind of riff like this. Thanks to the people that joined us live here to be part of it live. We do it live so that we can attract a bunch of weird robots, but also so that we can have some insight. We had, I think, a bunch of insight from people today. Thanks for that. And then also, I guess we'll answer questions live. You got anything to plug? You already plugged the YouTuber U8, the YouTuber Academy,
GunTuber Academy.
GunTuber Academy. You got other projects, so you want to plug anything else?
No, just working on. Today I fell short. I've done 5 videos in 5 days, just trying to get ready for shot because I'm going to be going for close to 2 weeks total with us
Driving
driving it.
on both ends and everything. Yeah.
So wanted to make sure I had plenty of content stacked up for that. But yeah, no, look for regular videos to release, which is typically Tuesday and Friday. When that's happening, gonna try to do some stuff hopefully during the show, whether it's a live at the Airbnb or whatever, and kind of hang out and decompress during that. So look for that. What week after next, I guess, or I don't even remember what it is now, but um, yeah, that's all it. I want to echo and say thanks to specifically RL and Tara who were out there that helped answer some stuff. So yeah, when you show up to the chat here, not only can you ask questions, but potentially help us answer stuff, you know, as well. Because especially the AK stuff, I was dumbfounded with that for sure.
Well, and coming at it from all different angles, that's neat. That's what it's all about. And that's why the internet's fun. That's why collaborations can be neat. And there are no like right answers, right? There are answers, but no question is like necessarily super specific. So there's lots of different ways to address them. I thought we definitely saw that today.
Yep.
Thanks again for joining in. You can check out Clover on his channels there. Oh, I should have also linked to, if you go to Clover Tech's channel and you go up to the top right, bunch of different links up there. One of them is to his Patreon. So if you enjoy the kind of stuff that Clover offers out there, kind of stuff that others on Patreon offer, you can subscribe to them. Same way people subscribe to a magazine or PBS, and make it possible for them to spend more time and attention on things that have interest to them and then hopefully to y'all. So I do appreciate the people that support us on those projects. I'm going to use this chance to remember to do this because I'm getting in the hang of it. I've made these slides up to say thanks to the people that support us. We have a couple of different levels over on Patreon. One of my projects this weekend is to revamp those projects. They're going to reflect these shows, or excuse me, revamp those levels. I'm going to rename them basically to reflect some of these shows that we do. The Daily Gun Show, the weekly wrap up, this one, and others, as well as some of the things like the tours and some of the other projects like the websites, the gun calendars, and the Minuteman University. We've got hundreds of websites really. So I really appreciate the people that let us do what we've been doing full time for so long. 2022 is looking like an amazing year as far as people who have been empowered and enabled through collaborations and through sharing of knowledge, right? And then for 2 years, they've been pushed down, right? When a lot of these people, think about how many advocates started in 2015, after we all saw what happened in 13 and people got motivated and there was lots of guns. And then we had some ammo shortages and some, minor, let's say, challenges to or added infringements and stuff, but we had mostly gains. We've had all the CCW, the constitutional carry gains, hunting with suppressors. All these things have made gains. They haven't really had many fights, or we haven't lost many fights, and that's just brought a lot of people into the whole game. So anyway, it's been, I don't know where I was going. It was just fun to be a part of this whole thing, I guess, and to see the people that are doing it as individuals is awesome. And we get to do that with support of each other or whatever, I guess is where I was getting with all that. So you can support Clover directly. If you click on, how do we figure it out? Is there a way that people can find who you support on here? They click on your community?
Not anymore. I have been trying to figure out, but they revamped, they patched, they updated at some point, and I haven't been able to figure out where that's located. And I hate that because I enjoyed displaying the folks that I support. And so, if they don't bring that back eventually, or if I don't come up with where you can find that, then the only other thing we could do is put out a little video every now and then and just tell people who we support, I guess.
Well, what I do is I go to where I can find mine is if I go to post from my creators, if I'm looking what y'all are posting over on
Yeah,
the left,
yours.
it'll show me
Yeah.
who I'm supporting. So what I'm going to do
Yes.
is make some screenshots of that. Last year I made a video series with shitty audio, and do that again. And then, yeah, because that's the thing is there's a ton of different folks, and what I enjoy is going out and seeing the linkages out there, see who all I'm
Right.
missing out there. And I'm
Well,
hoping to
used
get
to,
some of the activists that are really doing good work out in the blog space, out in the real life, actually activism, boots on the ground, some of the political stuff, bring those people in so that we get even more network going over there.
right. Well, used to, you could just jump to their, you could just jump on a creator's homepage, right? And if you scroll
Yeah, I
down,
was just writing
it would
over on the
show.
right over there. It was great.
Yeah, you could. And like now, I can't find it, so I don't like that. And it's still got the option. What's weird is to show that or turn it on and show it. But even if you turn it on and show it, it don't show up. So,
Well,
yeah,
Makojo mentioned that I got the poll running. Should we run this show each weekend? I got 18 votes, and it's unanimous for yes. So I
there we
should have
go.
probably thought about that before I said each weekend. I was thinking, I think, as I was talking and typing, should we keep this show going? But I don't care. I'll continue to try to do it. I guess next weekend would technically be SHOT Show, or like very close to it. This weekend after would be very close to being right after SHOT Show. So that would be difficult. But depending on, nothing certain at this point. So depending on what happens, we'll see what happens. But then, yeah, throughout the year, the goal is to do quite a few things. Since I'm chatting, unless Clover has to jump out or something, let's chat after the thing if you don't have to jump out. Hold on a second. But I was just going to mention that this year I do plan on, I mentioned this last year, and I didn't call it a resolution. I just wanted to do it, and I never was able to get it into the routine, but I'm definitely going to get it into the routine this year to get the newsletter going on a more regular basis. I basically do a blog version of the weekly wrap up over on Patreon. And then I'm basically, I want to remember to post that each week as a newsletter for the folks out there that don't go onto these social platforms, but still are interested in keeping up to date, not with the news of the day or freaking my opinion of the news of the day, but instead all the things that are happening like Brooke and, the efforts that are changing, like the Second Amendment Foundation's projects. Was kind of encouraged to see that they've put some effort into their production value, and just as they kind of came into the new year with better production value, they just announced today that they're no longer going to do their daily bullet on YouTube anymore. Makes no sense to me, but we'll continue to attempt to collaborate with folks, and we'll attempt to understand their decision to remove themselves from a platform. I mean, I certainly remove my time spent on Facebook, but I didn't remove myself from Facebook. So I don't really get it, but we'll continue to offer insight on stuff like that, happenings and the directions, and as much big picture as we possibly can. But like I say, on other platforms, I don't even know. I think I got a picture somewhere of all the different, I think I posted about it over here. So I think the quickest way would be to grab this post right here, and you can see all the different platforms that we're on. At this point, it took about 10 years probably to get on all these platforms, because I didn't just jump on one day and create a bunch of accounts. Just as I'd learn about a new one, I would create the account over there. But some of these are stupid and worthless, and others are just sort of holding areas, like archive places that just accumulate a copy of everything. No one really hangs out there. Something like a Tumblr, or the older ones, I guess, the Flickr. I don't think too many people hang out on those platforms anymore, but a lot of people store their photos over there. And then some of these newer platforms potentially could be a future. Clover and I have been chatting for a long time. I don't think anybody knows what the future is going to be with these platforms, but I don't think YouTube's going anywhere. Whether or not these littler ones come to be a new Reddit or a new version of the way people chat, we'll find out. But until then, like I say, I'm going to continue to post on them. And throughout the year, I'm going to use the newsletter to kind of help corral all that stuff, as well as the websites, as always.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't know who needed to hear it. I just felt like, I was kind of been thinking about that, and I just said it. So I figured the people that listen to this show might be interested. We do have quite a few people listening at the moment. So anyway, with that, I guess we'll end it. Going back to the thing over here and then down to here, we do have a store. So I'll end it with our little commercially thing for the store. If you want to check it out, there's links underneath of every video that we have. GearWebsites.com is your source. Hey, did you know that you could help support our future projects and let everyone know you're a fan of what we do? Check out our print-on-demand store. We have a tab here on YouTube. When you click on it, you can choose from a bunch of different items. We have shirts and posters and coffee mugs. Click on the one you like. When you find the design you want to put on it, choose a color and a size if it's appropriate. And when you purchase these items, a portion goes to help fund our future projects. We really do appreciate your support. You get some cool stuff. When you get that stuff, post pictures here and on other platforms, and we'll hook you up next time you order from our Gear Website store. Thank you for your support of gunwebsites.com. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals at gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching gunwebsites.com. Do 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 do.